All right, here we go. I know this is going to be a little bit small, but I will read for you guys. Flag Bearer creep bonus gold for allies in range increased by 10. So when you last hit them, you get more gold and your allies in lane get more gold. So slight gold increase there. Good for supports. Good for cores too. And better to make sure that your opponents don't last hit it. That is very, very important. Fix Grimstroke's Ink Swell heal with Ag Shard not applying during tick damage. So this one's actually kind of big. This is like a straight up buff to Grimstroke. You know, they say it's a fix or whatever. I don't know. You could argue. Regardless, you get healed by the Inkswell explosion based on how much damage it does. So the fact that it's going to heal you during tick damage is big, because that means that even if it's dealing damage to creeps, you're going to be healing. So you'll be healing constantly, which will give you a better chance to actually get the pop and the big heal towards the end. So buff to Grimstroke Shard. The sad part is that, like, I like Grimstroke, but I just feel like he's so based on his Shard for so long, especially in like pro games. It's like you either have to play mid and go that like E-Blade build, or you have to play around your Shard, and I feel like it makes the build the build a little bit restrictive, which is a little bit boring for me. So that is a bit bummer. Set challenges from part 2 Cavern Crawl take priority over part 1. I did not know that. It slightly makes sense actually, because if you have finished Cavern Crawl 1, wouldn't you want to do Cavern Crawl 2? Doesn't that make sense? Gyro's 25 talent 3x cooldown has less damage as there were more units in range, so they fixed that. Don't know why. Keep the Lights Illuminate in Spirit form wasn't working correctly with CDR, so they fixed that. Legion Commander's Moment of Courage 25 talent also granted dual cast range. Lich apparently had a global cast range on Ice Spire if he was channeling Scepter Sinister Gaze, so that's pretty funny. So you could cast it on like a creep apparently, and then cast an Ice Spire across the whole map. So that's pretty funny. Fixed lane creeps not moving after an Ice Spire was destroyed. Lifestealer Scepters Infest could bypass a Lincoln Sphere. Fixed Sand King's 15th Pulse Epicenter had a slightly small radius of 825 instead of 850. Tusk's Walrus Punch sometimes didn't go on cooldown after being activated. Underlord's Fiend's Gate was killable by Death Prophet's Exorcism, all fixed. Vendal's Plague Ward HP damage values were wrong, so they fixed that. Winter Wyvern's Splinter Blast projectile was being dodged by invisible but detected enemies if it was cast on a neutral creep. That's so bizarre. So if Splinter Blast was cast on a neutral creep, a dusted Ricky would be able to dodge it. Maybe because the neutral creep didn't have vision of the dusted guy or something. Maybe they still count it as invisible. I don't know. Very weird. Wraith King's Vamp Spirit Skeleton summoning being cancelled by Dispel midway through creating skeletons. Okay. Number of abilities having incorrect or missing cast range indicators, that's helpful, and clarified a number of ability tooltips. These are the best two in my opinion. There's always like errors like this that need to get fixed, in my opinion. All right, and now into items. Item changes: Blade Mail active damage return increased by 5% up to 85%. So this is when you activate it. So that's pretty big. The passive, so this means you're now reflecting 105% damage of attack damage at least. In terms of reflecting magic, it's a little bit higher too. Basically, nobody buys Blade Mail. It is not a common item. You get it on Axes and Legions still, but that's really about it. Not a very common item, and almost always not justified. Like, you're just better off buying more defense or buying like a save item. I mean, realistically, the only person that's going to buy Blade Mail anyways is like offlaners typically, because they're tankier. Supports wouldn't really justify it in almost all cases. It's just a lot of gold, 2,100 for just damage and armor. So like if it wasn't just damage, if Blade Mail wasn't like a damage dealing item, like if it didn't give you bonus damage, you could actually justifiably buy this on a lot more heroes. But so many heroes don't right click and are justified that way. So you basically would have to buy it on like mids, offlaners, or carries. Like supports are pretty rarely going to be picking this up. But I don't know, maybe there's some heroes that could justify it more, like Clockwork, but Clockwork kind of used to buy it a long time ago. Maybe he should buy it more. Like maybe it is justified for some heroes. But lifesteal and survivability are just easier to come by. So generally Blade Mail is just a bit weaker right now, I would argue. Bloodstone, baby nerf, 50 less health and mana. This item is really good. I'm surprised it didn't get more nerf than this, because it's just like way too good with Last Track is the problem. Like way too good. It's kind of a Leshrac problem, but the other issue is that it's just not really that good on anybody else in the game. Maybe like Death Prophet or something, but you basically need to do like a huge amount of spell damage. Ideally, you do AoE, and that therefore justifies you having a Bloodstone, basically. But like, there's not a lot of heroes that this is really justified on. I feel like basically supports, you're never going to buy it over here. Like, you could hypothetically buy it on like a Pudge maybe, but your AoE damage is not quite wide enough to be justified nor reliable enough. So Eternal Shroud is better on Pudge without a doubt. And that's the other thing, Eternal Shroud is like another item that's very similar. Hypothetically, like, it could be kind of cool on Zeus. You could activate it and use Zeus ulti and get a huge amount of mana back. That one would be kind of fun. But if you aren't actively casting spells on heroes, I don't know if it's that good. Like, I guess you can use it to get mana back from creeps, I suppose. Same damage delta mana. Like, maybe you could buy Bloodstone on a hero like Zeus. Never even thought about to try it, but maybe we can put it on the list here. Zeus, buy Bloodstone on other heroes. Zeus? Question mark. Who else? Who else could maybe buy it? A Tinker could be actually kind of good. I probably won't play Tinker, but I feel like a Tinker could buy Bloodstone probably. That one actually seems kind of good. No, not Viper. He doesn't do nearly enough magic damage. Basically somebody that does a lot of spell damage that also needs mana would like Bloodstone. But it doesn't increase your spell damage is the problem. Like, there's just generally going to be better. Usually, like, buying a Kaya on those heroes is just going to be better. Lena does do magic damage. Like, you could maybe buy it on a Lena. But the problem with Lena is that later on, it's just better to build Lena as, like, a right-click or physical damage hero. So the other component of Lena's benefits are your right-click. So buying Bloodstone on Lena is kind of bad, I would say. Unless you ended up with, like, a Maelstrom. If you buy like Maelstrom on her, it makes some sense because then you're getting like more spell damage dealt with your right click, but it's just not very good is the problem. It's probably fine on Storm Spirit in some cases, but your magic damage is not that high, so it's a little bit crappy. Something like Shadow Fiend hypothetically could work. Something like Queen of Pain could hypothetically work, but it's just not that good. Pugna, you don't really need the spell lifesteal because you already have it with life drain. So like, this is just the issue, is that for most of these heroes, Bloodstone is just kind of overkill. Maybe like Necrophos or something if you're like death pulsing, but there's just better items. It's 6 seconds, so it's like 1 death pulse. It's not even good. OD, it could be good because you would get a lot of spell lifesteal. It's actually kind of okay on OD actually, because it also gives you damage based on your mana pool. So your mana pool goes up by like 500, right? So so that would be like 16 times 4 max damage potentially. So 16, 32, double that is 64 plus another 16 is 70, 80. So it's like 80 more pure damage when maxed out, and you'd be getting mana back. But there's the next problem. Do you need mana back as OD? You don't. You already get mana from your passive, so that's not good. Like, you could argue that it's going to definitely help him stay alive in fights. That part's kind of cool. It's like I would argue it's a good lifesteal item on OD, without a doubt. It's genuinely a good lifesteal item on the hero if you need to stay alive. Bloodstone could be an option. But the hero's not exactly popular. But maybe it could be a thing like Witchblade Bloodstone or something. Go like a right-click build. You need a BKB in there too, kind of. Because the other issue is that, unlike Leshrac, if you're stunned, you're not dealing magic damage. But Leshrac, it's like he runs in with his ulti on. He gets stunned. He doesn't care. He's got Bloodstone active. He's life-stealing, so it's like he can't be killed. But OD could be like chain-stunned or disarmed and killed with Bloodstone. So it's just naturally way better on that hero. It's just so much better on Leshrac. That's why it's decent on Death Prophet, because you do damage while you're stunned. Batrider, hypothetically, it could work, but it's like there's just so many better items. I don't know if there's any like spell damage carries, but I doubt they're up here. Just this is the problem with Bloodstone. It just fits Leshrac so good, And most other heroes, it's not really that incredible. Enigma with Midnight Pulse, that would be kind of funny actually. Just Midnight Pulse yourself, use Bloodstone. That one would be legitimately funny. But the cooldown's really long on it, and when you're not Midnight Pulsing, it's a waste of an item, so that part would be bad. Could work on Bristleback without a doubt, because you can do a lot of damage with quills. What else? Hypothetically, an axe, it could work, but the mana's overkill, without a doubt. Venomancer, it could definitely work on Venomancer.
Concentrated venom.
Because you could like poison Nova Gale and then activate Bloodstone. And if you got a big bomb off, you could be getting a lot of health. It doesn't pierce spell immunity, but so that would maybe limit your survivability a bit, but it kind of works on Veno, genuinely. It actually could kind of work on this hero. If you buy Ags, the damage goes up a little bit. Just the max HP percentage goes up. So the base is 20, 30, 40. I mean, hypothetically, this could work. Because it ends up jumping the... It's 2.5 spell lifesteal, so that goes 2.5. So that is... Is that like 100? I'm confused. 1, 2... Yeah, 2.5 should be 30 plus 15. So 45 plus 30. So it should be 75% spell lifesteal. Like, I don't know if that's that incredible on the Veno. It's kind of good. It's not that good on Storm, I don't think. Like, it's okay on Storm. If you get a long distance ball lightning, it's really good. But he doesn't just do magic damage. He does mixes of physical. He does physical and magic. So it's kind of overkill, in my opinion. So I would say it's not very good on Storm. So the only ones that sound kind of good, I think Zeus and Tinker could work. I think Veno maybe could work. Necro's bad. It could work on like Primal Beast or somebody like that if you really wanted to, but it's just like overkill over like a Soul Ring. And it only like works with a second skill and it's not even that good. It'd be kind of good on a Sand King, but if you really wanted to get ultra tanky on Sand King, it's kind of cool. Because you have Sandstorm and Epicenter is good with it. It'd be really good with like Caustic Finale too. I bet you could lifesteal from that. So yeah, maybe like Sand King, but again, it's just really expensive over buying something like a Blink. Like, you're going to spend 4,000 gold to like give yourself like tanky lifesteal, but the hero isn't that tanky by himself, so the Bloodstone is kind of bad, you know? It's like, if you're tanky and you have it, it's kind of good. Like, again, it's kind of okay with Sandstorm, but it's just like, getting Blink first is still going to buy like far and away be better. Maybe you could do something like Rush Vanguard on Sand King to get through the laning stage, then buy Blink, then buy Bloodstone. I could see that working, disassemble the Vanguard, and then turn the Ring of Health into like a hood or something. I could see that working, to be honest. Because then when you go into a fight, like, you can tank a buttload of damage because you're doing like 100 damage a second to every hero, and your life stealing 75 of that. And or what's a little bit less of that because of natural resistance. So I don't know, maybe like a Sand King, or like I could poke around with the item to try it on some other heroes. It could work on Shadow Fiend for sure, because you do a lot of magic damage on that hero. It's just kind of mediocre again because you have right click components, so it's kind of a waste. So you basically have to be really spell damage focused for it to be justified. It could work on a Darkseer, probably. Darkseer could lifesteal from it really well. I could definitely see Darkseer abuse this. So I feel like you'd get your mana back like right away, right? Not that you really need mana regen on this hero that bad, and usually you solve it by like Arcane Boots or whatever. Bloodstone Razor. Yeah, just not like, yeah, it can kind of work, but you're still very right click components, so you'd be better off to buy other things, almost without a doubt. And then buy the Bloodstone. Just a very expensive item, you know? So like, yeah, I mean, I can use it to get mana back. And you could use it to, like, potentially tank, but it's like your sources of magic damage are not, like, so incredible that it's really justified compared to Lashrak, who just needs levels and has, like, all damage, you know? This is the issue. Max damage 450. I haven't even tried the shard. Slows enemy around it by 50% and deals 35 damage per second. This seems kind of good, to be honest, the shard. So I don't really see Darkseer working. CM is not going to be able to afford it. Yeah, I know it's a joke, but she already has mana regen, so it's kind of irrelevant. And most of the time she just gets stunned on her ulti anyways. It's more important to like have BKB, that way they can't stop your ulti. It's not so much about surviving through it. The surviving part is solved by her having armor, and the other surviving part is solved by having BKB. So the only heroes I can think about: Zeus, Tinker, Venno, Sand King, Darkseer. It's not really good on Bristle because he's better off going hybrid right click anyways. So, and that spell lifesteal build is kind of garbage anyways. That's basically about it. Almost any other hero is going to be justified in buying something else. Like Underlord, hypothetically, it's good on him, but it's just better stuff. Almost certainly. Does his passive still do the following thing? It does. It could hypothetically work on Underlord, but it's not. I don't think it's that bad on this hero against the right heroes, because you are doing a lot of damage with Firestorm. If you had Shard with it, it could work okay, in my opinion. If you run into the enemy squad and you're like dropping down Firestorm that's, you know, doing 90 damage a tick and burning 3%, and that ticks 25% faster. That's pretty good. And it waves 9 times, yeah. Like you could definitely get Bloodstone and Shard on Underlord. Maybe Underlord. But, and then you can get the Firestorm talents. That'd be a 8-second cooldown. How long does it last? Underlord could definitely work. Skywrath Mage? Skywrath Mage could actually work, yeah. I like Skywrath Mage, that's a good point. Sky could work. The problem with Sky, though, is that their other items are going to get you kills. Like, you could buy, if you're like a core Sky, you could buy it later for sure. And then if I buy Shard, how long does this... Oh, let me level up more. I get this. I mean, this one could actually work. Bloodstone on this hero. They probably just kill me because I'm now spending all this money on... Like, you couldn't buy this early. Like, but you could buy Bloodstone as like a third item on this hero, I feel like, against the right heroes. In a lot of cases, they're just going to kill you individually. So you would probably need... Maybe you could do like the new Crimson Guard against the right lineup, because now it gives even more armor. It got buffed by 2. So you could do some like Crimson Guard type shit maybe on this hero, where you have like a lot of survivability, you know, something like this. And then you could buy Bloodstone maybe. You get a bunch of mana back. I would like this one I could definitely see. It doesn't work because I already used it. I gotta wait for it to run out. Spawn a creep wave. Just gonna burn some mana. Yeah, I mean, you can get your mana back this way for sure. I think this one's a possibility. But 33's been doing Bloodstone Razor? Okay. Interesting. Does he get Shard as well? I'd have to see what the build is like. I mean, Razor kind of works in the sense that he does like a buttload of damage. So if he just survives, it's like he does even more damage. That part's kind of cool, I guess. But... And he does need HP, and the mana regen's nice. And yeah, the survive is good. Using with pipe, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, if he's buying it with pipe, if it's like he's buying Bloodstone third, yeah, sure, that works. I could definitely see that function. All right, Skywrath Mage, like I said, could work, but usually you'd probably buy it later. Hypothetically, could work on a Pudge as well to get a buttload of lifesteal when he's low HP. That part could be really good about that over Eternal Shroud. Eternal Shroud is a little bit straightforward. It's like, okay, he's lifestealing so much. But if you have the option to like pop a Bloodstone when you're low on a Pudge and then ulti somebody, that could be insane. Because you can actually heal a lot from Dismember. Usually at those later stages of the fight, you kind of just get kited, so I'd argue that maybe Bloodstone is kind of not so good there, but I don't know. OD not needed because the mana regen is kind of irrelevant. But the spell Lifesteal on Orb is really good, I would argue, so maybe it's okay. OD question mark. And that's about it. Death Prophet, of course. Yep, we're still on B items, that's right. Snapfire has a lot of low cooldown unless for abilities or mana. Yes, but she isn't really like an upfront tanky hero, so I'd argue it's not justified at all. You need somebody that's like kind of naturally tanky. Like Axe is kind of good, honestly, because he does a lot of spell damage. He does counter heal pure damage. He does battle hunger damage. You could spell lifesteal from all of these things, from these two spells. So like as an ultra late game, you know, Axe could hypothetically buy it, but I forgot that counter helix does attack reduction. Deal less total attack damage. This isn't a damage reduction, it's an attack damage reduction. So it's like really good. Timber, yeah, it's decent against, it's decent. Timber's a good example. It definitely could work on Timber. Because you're doing a lot of spell damage and you could lifesteal the mana back and lifesteal your health back with it. Timber is a perfect example of a hero. Yeah, Timber could definitely work. Usually Timbers are going to buy other things. Resistance-based items, utility items to keep yourself alive. But yeah, Bloodstone definitely could work. The other issues you're already countered by spell lifesteal, or by Spirit Vessel on this hero, so Bloodstone doesn't really protect you there. But you're right. Timber could work. You always said Bloodstone. Medusa Bloodstone is insane. I guess you could say, I guess that is kind of bonkers if you think about it. Because what he's saying is that any mana that you gain on this hero is really beneficial, right? Because every damage you take gets blocked by mana. So if you are getting, if you land like a monster snake, for example, or if you go like Mjolnir with Bloodstone on this hero and then activate it, you're getting both HP from your lifesteal and you're getting mana. So let me show you guys. It does make sense survivability wise. Like if you are worried about dying, you can argue that it's similar to like a Satanic. But the problem is that a Satanic also gives you damage. Not that it's a lot, but 38 damage, and it gives you basic lifesteal. So let's take like a really late game Dusa, for example. Butterfly. We're gonna buy this. We need the Mjolnir. We're gonna level up like to 25 or something. Modifiers. This is the one that everybody will get. Okay, and then we need like, I don't know, we'll buy treads and the Bloodstone, I guess. 500 health, 500 mana, pretty good regardless, right? So, and then if we just get anti-mages are perfect. Can I level these guys up?
The true path. I like to do that.
So if we do this and then I go this. So they died kind of fast, obviously, but let me buy them hearts. And then buy them like ACs.
Vile creature.
So if I get the opportunity to like Bloodstone attack ever, it's going to heal me kind of bonkers because in some ways better than Satanic. Because Satanic would get my HP full, but this also gets my mana full, you know? And it's hard to get like all of this mana back. You can snake people sometimes, that can work certainly, if they have a lot of mana, but if I want to get mana back, this is actually pretty sick. So, but the problem is that the only spell damage I'm doing is from Mjolnir or from Snake. And yeah, I'd have Shard as well, of course, to like throw Snake back occasionally. It's at turn and movement speed slow. What's the movement speed slow on this? 30? It could be better, I guess. You could get it up to like 45. Whenever I play Deuce, I don't throw my Snake enough, that's for sure. But yeah, so like hypothetically, I can like, you know, regen my spell, my mana better this way. So maybe there's some games where this item's better, but you definitely have to like plan ahead and decide to buy Bloodstone instead of Satanic as your last item. But it is kind of comparable. It's comparable to Satanic, you could say. 30% lifesteal, this gives you spell lifesteal, so it's not nearly as good. Because if you're like split shot cleaving with Satanic, a bunch of units, like you're going to heal a lot more individually, but getting mana back is kind of cool. Like I said, because mana is more of your health. Because this is blocking 3 damage per mana. Yeah, 3 damage per mana. So this is, and that's before reduction, by the way. So against like magic damage sources, it's really good, basically. So if they're like really magic damage heavy and not physical damage heavy, you could argue Bloodstone is probably better with Mjolnir. But anyways, and Mjolnir active, that's a good point actually. Yeah, with Mjolnir active, it's really good. This is maybe not the best example because they're actually mana burning me, but if they were just regular attacking me instead of mana burning, then yeah, the active together with Bloodstone is pretty sick. Because every time it procs, I'm getting a bunch of mana back as well. So kind of increases my survivability. Alright, that's enough of a tangent on Bloodstone. Again, it's a broken item on Lesh. There's no doubt about it. It was like, I think without a doubt, that was the most broken thing at TI that was played heavily was Bloodstone Lesh. So I expected to get nerfed more than this. Maybe we'll see nerfs to Lesh. That's more likely, but a little surprising myself. But we'll see what happens when the bigger patch comes out. Again, this is a D patch, so it's not like the biggest. And I scanned through it a little bit to see like how it's mostly like small touches. That means that they're working on a big patch, but it's going to take a bit longer. So they release this one just to like slightly adjust the meta a bit right now to keep people interested. All right, Boots of Bearing. I didn't see anybody buy this at TI, even though drums of endurance were pretty popular. So this has been buffed, a little bit cheaper here. Again, it makes your tranquil boots always work, and then you regain charges. But a lot of the times that I buy drum, I don't quite run out of charges, especially when I buy it like late in the game. So if you buy it early, sure, you'll run out of charges, and a bearing upgrade is kind of nice. But bearing's cost compared to drum is just kind of a lot. The recipe is... Oh, I see. They reduced the recipe cost of drum, actually. They didn't touch Boots of Bearing. So surprising me, because actually they did buy drum a decent amount of TI. Not every game, but a little commonly. But anyways, buy drum more, I guess. It's definitely good on supports, for sure. And it being lower cost is nice, but generally there's better items to buy is typically what's going on. Crimson Guard 2 armor is really nice. This will matter when we talk about Wraith Pact, but let's keep going. Guardian Greaves Aura threshold for boosted health regen increased by 5%. So it goes from 2.5 to... This is misleading. It's actually boosted health regen and armor, but it's 25%. So if you're at 25% or below health, you get boosted regen and armor. So it's 18.5 health regen and 10 armor. So it goes from 3 armor to a 10 armor aura. So 7 extra armor when you're low. But it is, yeah, it's a lot of regen. Recipe cost went down by 100, which is pretty nice. That's definitely making it more buyable. 1450. It used to be like 1700, I feel like. So if you want to use it as a dispel, it's much, much more affordable now. From a mech carrier standpoint. Some heroes do need dispels, and mech is pretty decent right now, I think. It's pretty low cost. It doesn't give you like the best stats, but if you can pop it in a fight, it's pretty solid. So 40-second cooldown, better auras for your team. This could be like a replacement aura for a Wraith Pact, hypothetically, since Wraith Pact got nerfed. Pipe of Insight is buffed, actually, so more magical damage blocked up to 450. This is probably why people like 3-3 are playing like Pipe Bloodstone, because they're trying to like find the new abusive combos. We might as well talk about Wraith Pact. The Ward aura no longer reduces magic or pure damage, though it still affects physical damage from attacks and spells. So this is a massive, massive nerf to this item. It's safe to say that it's bad now. At least the active. The active aspect of Wraith Pact is just bad at this point. So it used to reduce all physical, basically all damage dealt by somebody it was affecting would be reduced by 30. So they do less physical damage, magic damage. So you could basically, if you're a tanky guy, you run to the front, your opponents are about to initiate on you, drop it on the ground, and if your opponents are not magic immune from BKB, the totem will affect them, and they will deal 30% less damage to you. So it effectively gives you a lot more HP, which was valuable because it gives you 3 armor aura, it gave you 250 health and 250 mana. So all the components going into Wraith Path were not that expensive, and it also reducing their damage was helpful. And yeah, they can attack it 4 times, but if you're playing well with your team, that burst moment is usually the first couple seconds. So if they don't have the time to kill the Wraith Totem in that first like 4 seconds of initiation, then it gives you a massive amount of survivability. And this is one of the things that Tundra abused at TI really, really effectively to win. And they used it in combination with Pipe. And the reason was because Pipe as a barrier, that much like Medusa's aura, in fact, it works the same way, I think, a very similar way. The damage being thrown at you, Pipe reduces it before everything else comes into play, like how much magic resistance you have. So the Pipe or barrier on somebody, if they have high magic resistance themselves, it's less effective than if it's on a hero that has no magic resistance. Or if your opponent is lowering your magic resistance, for example, I got to look into how Veil works, because it might be, I don't know if it's at the start. Let's go test it out really quick. I don't think, because Veil does not increase, it doesn't decrease your magic resistance. It used to, but you can use it as if you want to do pure damage, for example. So one way we can test this. Let's get a dag on this. Make a dummy target. And then make an enemy who has a pipe. So this should block 450 damage if I barrier this, and then actually, and then the AM's gonna have to walk away because the aura is really big. So he pipes, he's got no more aura, and if I dag on, let's see how much damage it does. So it did 112. It does 600 here. 450 if it's blocked, that leaves 150, and then 150 damage is applied to magic resistance, and 75% of 150 is 116. That's what happened. Okay, so that makes sense. Let's see what happens when I Veil, how much damage we do exactly.
It's not time yet.
Okay, that's all good. So 132.75. I'm gonna do 150 times 0.75. So that's 112.5. Fuck, what was the number? It was 130 something. I don't want the dummy himself to have pipe, because then he'll have the pipe aura, which gives more magic resistance, and it's gonna throw my numbers off. And Veil is supposed to increase the damage by 18%, so I'm gonna times this by 1.18. Yeah, it's 132. So Veil will amplify the final damage that's dealt. So Veil is actually in the context of Pipe, it's actually not that bad. Well, Pipe is actually good against Veil, basically, because it's reducing the damage dealt, and then Veil amplifies the remaining damage dealt. So Veil's kind of bad right now, I would argue. Pipe is even better against Veil than it used to be. But, what was this in reference to? I was thinking about Veil, Wraith Pact, Pipe. But basically, the reason that Wraith Pact and Pipe was really good, it was because it would reduce the damage that you dealt before Pipe of Insight took into an account. And this is the same as lowering somebody's spell damage. So if you use a Mage Slayer, for example, it lowers the damage you're throwing before it even gets affected by Pipe. So Wraith Pact plus Mage Slayer against Pipe makes Pipe broken. It basically doubled the amount of damage block that it did. So it was one of the things that Tundra did in their drafting, because it allowed them to pick illusion heroes often, because illusion heroes are countered by AoE magic. So the solution at TI was either Purge or Leshrac, lots of AoE magic. And since Leshrac was broken, this seemed scary for most teams, so they never picked illusion heroes. Tundra didn't really care that much. They still picked Naga regularly, and they still picked CK regularly, because they knew that with Wraith Pact and a Mage Slayer or Bloodthorn later, that they would have, they would know that in like a small fight, these AoE damage heroes would actually not crush their illusions like they would every other team, because so they could plan for it basically. So Pipe, Wraith Pact, and Mage Slayer counter, at least in a short period of time, when Pipe is active, those AoE magic damage heroes, and allow you to like win fights potentially. So now Wraith Pact won't do that. You can still use Mage Slayer if you want to make Pipe really, really effective. That's still an option. But Mage Slayer isn't really that good to rush, and Wraith Pact is just easier to use. You put the ward down. It works against all damage types, not just magic. So even if they don't have one of those counters, you can still put it down and reduces their physical damage. But the fact that this only counters physical damage just makes it significantly worse, because this item is generally countered by right-click carries, because those heroes usually attack rapidly. So now the people whose damage it reduces it's good against melee heroes basically, who are going to have a harder time hitting the totem 4 times. But against like range carries, Wraith Pact is just garbage. It's just not good, I think. So I would say Wraith Pact is kind of in the dumpster, but it will situationally be useful, which is fine, but it's not going to be the same. Like some heroes that it's really good on will still buy it, like Beastmaster type heroes, but we'll probably see them go back to buying Helm of the Overlord instead of buying Wraith Pact, is my assumption. Unless it's a good game for it. Right click carries, pop BKB and don't care. That's another really good point, yeah. So it's not very good against them either. But against your like Tusk type heroes, yeah, it's going to be good. If there's like right click supports, it's kind of useful, but yeah, it's not that good. They buff Veil, one more stat here, which is fine. Are there any Veil heroes that I wanted to play? I feel like Veil plus Shadow Demon is good. Veil, Shadow Demon, and Dissimulate is probably good. If you guys watched my recent video on SD's second skill, Veil is probably really good with him, because this skill does whatever damage you deal to the target, that damage, a percentage of it will be spread in an AoE. So if you buy Veil, you're spreading 35% of your damage dealt. Well, it combos double, right? Veil will make the damage I'm about to do to them with Shadow Poison be increased by 18%. That's great. And then of that damage that's dealt, that 35% of that big number is also going to be increased by 18%. So you're getting double Veil bonus with Disseminate. So that's pretty sick. So double Veil bonus there. So 18% more Shadow Poison damage, and then 18% more Disseminate damage after. So you're getting 18% here. Can I do math on this? Let's say the Shadow Poison does 1,000 damage. We're going to increase that by 18%. So now it does 1,180. And then of that, there's 0.35 of that gets spread. So now that's 413 damage. And that also gets increased by 18%. So now that AoE damage becomes 487. So the first guy that takes all the Shadow Poison damage is going to end up taking like 1,600 magic damage. Well, that's if you have level 4 Disseminate, but still, it's kind of a fucking bonkers amount of damage. So I would say Shadow Demon Veil is probably a thing, actually. So I'll try that out today, especially because it just got buffed. The downside to this, though, is that Shadow Demon is very vulnerable to getting killed. And that means that if you spend your money on a Veil of Discord instead of another item, there's a better chance that you just like get killed more early mid game, and you're not able to like sit around and save people, which is a bummer. But maybe you could do it in like the mid lane or something, like rush Veil of Discord. I could definitely see that being really effective. Go mid, rush Veil. I'll try that. Mid SD. Because if you get like 5 stacks of Shadow Poison on somebody, they're gonna die. Here, let's test it out. This is an area of the game that absolutely could be abused. Let's even try it at level 5. Let's say you buy a really fast Veil. This guy has normal magic resistance. Four. Oh, it did 1,000, okay. Like, I'm level 5 and I just did 1,000 damage. That's after resistances. It's like a shitload of damage. That was 1,000 damage. So I basically did 1,250 total magic damage. Like, I actually think this is broken. If you're able to get 5 Shadow Poisons on somebody. Usually it works best if I like land a Shadow Poison, they get stunned, I land a second Shadow Poison, I disrupt them, I land a third Shadow Poison. You know, I could ulti him hypothetically. But this is a lot of mana. So yeah, including the 250 that was dealt before, it was about 1,000 damage. And then you could also increase that with the 10 talent too. Even though this like strength talent is amazing, but yeah, let's level this up all the way. Let's get mana back. Again, difficult to get 5 on them, and also do this without dying because your hero's really slow. 290 is particularly slow. So 1,500 damage. So it was like 12. It was almost 1,300 damage, and of that's gonna be 600 AOE. I mean, yeah, we can put a hero next to it.
Yes, I. Truth compels me.
Let's give them all like a little bit of HP. So the problem with Shadow Demon is basically your hero is slow. It takes a long time to cast 5 Shadow Poisons, and usually your opponents are going to initiate on you or kill you by the time you do this. So it's kind of like not necessarily viable, but... So they took 300 damage just now. Which is pretty good. I mean, it's like extra, right? Did they not get amplified, though? Kind of looked like it didn't get amplified. Two, 3. I thought it would be more. 341 after reduction, I guess. I don't know if the second one's getting amplified Veil or not. Doesn't look like it is. Like, why is it not higher? Because this guy's taking way more damage. It's like Veil isn't amplifying the Disseminate spread damage because it's like a Blade Mail source or something. So maybe it's not as good as I thought it was. It's still going to be good on the primary target because that guy's still taking more Shadow Poison damage, which means that the Disseminate does more. But I Veil half the test. Oh, that's right. That's right. Good idea. It was like 340, right? I think it was 340. 3, 4. Oh, it did do more. Okay, 289. Alright, so it does work. For whatever reason, it just wasn't as much damage as I expected. Maybe it's because the damage dealt... I'm not sure. Is the W is not related to distance? No. It's the same in 600. So you can see the AoE. It's this giant AoE. Everybody in here takes the damage. So it does work. So Veil SD is definitely probably good. It's probably worth doing. Yeah, you could definitely clear stacks with it. That's the other thing about it for sure. If you play mid SD, that's probably the way to do it. You just have to go stack things, and then you can clear them with Shadow Poison and Disseminate without a doubt. I definitely agree with this. You'd probably have to go like mid. You'd probably have to go Arcanes. I could try it today. Mid arcanes use disruption to go stack ancients. What's the duration? 11. So you could disrupt, get to the ancients a little bit early, disrupt yourself, walk back to mid, double stack, and then clear, and then have fast veil plus BOTs is probably what I would do. I'd probably go BOTs first, I think. That's probably the way. So let's do that today. Mid SD, stack ancients and large, rush veil and BOT, and then after that you'd probably buy like blink or ags or something. Aether Lens is going to be really good too, but you probably need some survivability at that point, I feel like. But Aether Lens could work. But Ags is probably safer because it's going to have higher impact. You get 3 ultis. You can buy Shard to have 3 demonic cleanses. Get the demonic purge damage talent. You might want like a Kaya there too for mana regen because you're going to be struggling mana regen at that point. Lotus for mana and dispel? No, not really. Would you want Bloodstone for mana purposes? Bloodstone SD could kind of work, but it'd be better at like jungling versus other stuff. I'd probably rather just buy a Kaya, to be honest, because it gives you mana regen, but it also gives you damage. And at that point, damage is just going to be better. Okay, so those are some ideas. Mid SD, stack ancients, and large. Rush, veil, and boots of travel. It's probably going to be bad compared to like other mid heroes, but it could maybe work. You would need like bottle and arcane, I'm sure, to solve the mana. But I guess you'll have Basie from the veil, so maybe it's not that bad. And then you could just rush veil instead of getting like null talismans, because you can get a crown anyways, right? So you could just buy like crown, wand, Basie, bottle, boots. And then what is recipe increase for veil? 650. It's really not that much. These are solid base components. Buy the veil after to increase your damage a bit. Minimum, you're going to farm jungle camps a lot faster. So, but it does require stacks. If you're not, and you can stack really easy with this hero, but if you are not doing a good job stacking, then you're not going to be a faster farmer than other cores. But if you do stack, it's definitely going to be faster because you're only spending about 350 mana per stack clear, 250 mana per stack clear if you don't use disseminate. Okay, that's enough of a tangent for items that are not really explored enough. The purple tire is it's a dog toy. I'll move it. This is what it looks like. That's green screen too. It makes sounds. It's making bad sounds. Anyways. There, it made a sound. It makes sounds if you move it, I think. Okay, let's go on to hero changes. Acid Spray mana cost is heavily reduced. This will be better for all alchemists, but definitely support alch if you want to give it a shot. They're buffing Bounty Rune Multiplier for Grievous Greed. This was necessary, actually, because there are not that many Bounty Runes now, and the level 1 Grievous Greed does not give you that much gold. 1.8 is like, you're getting like 70 gold or something instead of 40. It's fine, but not that incredible. Times 1.8. 72 gold. It's okay. But, I mean, you're not getting so much gold that it like changes your laning stage. You're better off to get Acid Spray or your stun at level 1 typically. So, yeah. And then 15, the damage per Grievous Greed stack increased. So, the max stack number is 24. So before you would get 24 damage from this talent, now it's going to be higher. It's going to be 32 or something. No, it's going to be higher, 36. So you'd get 36 damage from this talent now instead of 24. So decent, but the Acid Spray grants armor to allies talent is almost surely better because you're going to be giving that to yourself as well when you kill somebody. So it's like, do you want to give up 7 armor for 32 damage? It might be worth it now. That's a pretty big swing. But yeah, Acid Spray armor for allies is cool. Arc Warden Spark Wraith, Ag Scepter secondary Wraith duration decreased. So it doesn't last nearly as long. So that's when you buy Ags and the first spark dies, a new one spawns, and that one's not going to linger forever, basically. It's going to have a short linger. So it won't be as good to like make massive traps. I know Arc Warden's win rate is really high right now. So, or maybe not. It is pretty good. Pretty good. 55. Oh, sorry. It was 55%, but it's dropped a bit. Maybe more people trying it who are bad at the hero or something, but yeah. And surprisingly, Leshrak's win rate has gotten a little bit worse too. Not the absolute highest, still like Visage, Brood, but you know, this hero definitely buys Wraith Pact. This hero buys Wraith Pact. Damn, Tide is fucking 4th. Incredible that like his win rate before TI was just not that good. Didn't get changed, and then Tundra shows us, hey guys, Wraith Pact pipe on Tide is like really fucking good, and then his win rate goes like through the roof. Yeah, but yeah, a lot of like pushing heroes, Wraith Pact heroes, win rate's still good, but they'll go down a little bit when now that the item is nerfed, which is good. Let's see, 10 talent is nerfed, Tempest double cooldown reduction talent nerfed a little bit too, so you can't spam quite as many spells once you hit 25. Axe 10 talent movement speed per active battle hunger increased by 2%, so a little bit more movement speed there.
Axe, even without the axe.
I'm sorry, does it not give you movement speed anymore? I guess it does not. It used to. It used to slow them less and give you movement speed. Now it just slows them if they're looking away from you. So if you get this talent, you will increase your movement speed when you use battle hunger. That is actually the slightly less popular one, but it has a higher win rate. Berserker's Call Armor is fine, considering it does increase your damage when you use it, but battle hunger slow, much higher win rate. Probably because people grab it when they are chasing people and getting kills. But it is a really powerful slow, like up to 47% slow. Really powerful. Everybody gets culling armor, blade per stack, bonus armor per culling blade stack, and it has the higher win rate too. 2 times battle hunger multiplier. Nobody gets it, but it dominates. That one seems a little bit of a mistake. I don't know. So if you have like 20 armor, you're getting like an extra 20 damage per second. Ags is still really good on this hero too. I don't know. There's probably not that many like late game maxes, to be honest. I like that hero, but I just don't pick it that much. Maybe I should play it more. It's kind of up my alley, but I think the hero's a little bit weak. But Crimson Guard got buffed. Maybe he's okay. Maybe you can play him more as like a tanky frontliner. Rely on battle hunger more. I don't know. Probably not good. You always go battle hunger talent and get Eggs. Okay. Yeah, Eggs seems really good. Doesn't it? It affects all people. Lowers your Berserker's Call cooldown by 3. That part's really good. Goes down to 8. And lowers their armor by 7 and gives you 7 armor per each, which means every person you affected on gives you 7 more battle hunger damage as well. So, and it does physical damage. So I don't know. Axe seems really good on X. I mean, if you're playing like mid Axe, I think that makes sense to go Axe, but maybe off lane it's just too hard because you're trying to get like Blink, Blade Mail, BKB, and then from there, like you don't really get to dominate the map usually. Like he does okay in his lanes, but he doesn't really dominate super hard generally. And if you miss your Axe call and don't get kills there, it feels difficult to disengage on this hero is the other issue. Usually you're like, you can't really like stop them from killing you when you run away, you know? Bounty Hunter's Shadow Walk now reduces attack speed on hit up to 40. So it lowers attack speed and movement slow. So this is going to make Bounty Hunter better as like a carry matchup. If you're trying to kill like a carry, this is going to be way more effective. Because before it's like you don't have any way to stop them from killing you other than you being invisible or running away. So if this reduces attack speed for your opponents for 4 seconds, it's going to be a way better trading skill. Keep in mind you can also use this twice when you hit somebody. So like in the laning stage, this is like an old Dota 1 trick that used to do when it used to do damage, but this is one way that you maximized your gank potential on this hero. But while it's fading, a wind walk ability, you can get a hit off on somebody if the fade time is slow enough, and then you get to apply the debuff twice. So if I want to, let's say I am chasing an anti-mage, and I want to chase him for a very long time. What you do is while you're invising, you click it and you attack, and then this buff goes on him, and then later you hit him again. And then it applies twice. So I've only cast it 1 time, but I got 2 slows out of it, basically. So if you use this in the laning stage, for example, even if you're under a sentry ward, like let's say AM has a sentry and he decides to fight you, what I can still do is I can still hit him like this, and then I can hit him again, and it reapplies it a little bit and it lowers his attack speed. So hypothetically, this ability is just like way better in the laning stage. Because 16 attack speed is kind of significant. It's not like the biggest thing in the world, but this is free benefit. And it does slow movement speed, so... for 65 mana, it's not like the best trading ability, but your armor is really high, so pairing attack speed slow with this is not bad. And it's going to make it a little bit safer for you to like break invis and try to kill somebody. But Bounty's still kind of in a crappy place, because his laning stage is like just mediocre. I think if you play him as like a 3... and you harass the shit out of your lane, I think that is decent. I think he's okay there. But he yeah. He struggles. Shadow Walk, attack and move slow. That's now a better talent, the 10 right one. I was just looking at that. It was a 10% slow before, so it's slow from 40 to 50. But now the fact that it does attack and movement speed, that feels a little bit better. So now as a support, you can basically walk in. It doesn't pierce spell immunity, so you can't like hit a BKB carry with it to lower their attack speed, but if their BKB's down, you can certainly walk in and like slap somebody with Shadow Walk. Keep in mind that when you level this up, the fade time goes down, which is bad for the hero, because that means you can't easily stack it twice. If you can't begin your animation and attack them before that 0.25 seconds, you're not gonna be able to apply it twice. So usually like after level 2 Shadow Walk, it's really hard to apply it later. So like later on, you're probably not gonna be able to apply it twice. But either way, being able to like slow the attack speed of a carry late game whose BKB is down is actually pretty effective. 50 attack speed is massive. It absolutely could change like the team fight outcome. Shard still does the stun thing, right? 2 charges can be cast on allied heroes. Fade time is 1 second for allies. That's kind of cool, actually. You could hypothetically use it to like apply twice on an enemy. Lowers charge restore time to 12. So anyways, lowering attack speed, definitely useful. Janata damage talent, probably not that good. The extra slow makes sense why it would be beneficial, because sometimes you're gonna get kills that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. Whereas 40 extra damage is like only really good in like low level pubs where you're getting like a deso or some shit. Like you shouldn't, I genuinely don't even think Ags is good right now. It actually doesn't feel good. I feel like the Ags bounty build is garbage. It's like fine, but like the problem is that you're sitting around like casting track a lot, and then you start throwing shurikens, which is doing some damage, but like it feels to me like it's not enough of an impact to be justified. I think you need to, it's like you almost need to be like a tanky run at you single target damage bounty right now is what it feels like. Like the Janata bounce just doesn't feel good enough to me unless you're like unless you get it really fast and you start shredding supports. Or if your game is like spending a lot of time close to the enemy team but not engaging. So if they have like a death push lineup, I think Ags is cool because they're going to spend a lot of time near your tower and you're going to bounce shurikens, stealing gold and dealing damage. But if it's like they jump in and start a fight and the fight's over in 15 seconds, Ags is not good because the amount of value that you're getting from Ags is just not that high. So this hero I think needs like a different item build, or you need to be able to like run in and kill one guy, I think. Whether that's like an orchid or something else. Hypothetically, an orchid could work. Actually. Raw damage, attack speed, gives you mana regen. You need to pair it with some kind of HP item probably, and phase is typically really good on this hero, so maybe this works. It gives you attack speed, phase gives you damage, and then you just need some like raw HP. So I don't know, maybe there's some kind of build out there that could work, or you go Vanguard plus Greaves or some shit. I don't know. Like hypothetically, like you want to buy, the other problem is you don't have team fights. So you usually want to buy items that help your team survive. So something like Greaves could work. Vlad's Greaves or some shit with Vanguard. I don't know. Stay alive, continue to track, continue Janata. Those are like your options, I feel like, but maybe that could work. Bounty off lane. I think it has to be an off lane kind of. Like I don't know. It's like a ganking off lane. I feel like you need farm for the hero to be good early, because as a 4, it's just not that incredible. I don't think. The shard gives you a stun, I guess, and you get 2 charges. Like maybe you can abuse Shard to like help get your carries or other allies into the game better because they'll be invis, but just not really that sold on this hero. 2 second silence on hit with Shadow Walk. Yeah, that one's good. Potentially. Ground vision better than Janata Gold Steel. That makes sense. Vision on enemies is really powerful. And then 2 Shrike and Tosses. Better than Track Gold, apparently. A little surprised, but anyways. I don't know. I'd like to make Bounty work. Maybe I'll play him today. Vanguard into Graves, question mark. Shard, question mark. Shiva, question mark. Against like a right click lineup, if you had like Shiva Bounty Hunter with Shadow Walk slow, that'd be kind of good. Because then you could like really lower the attack speed of your opponents. Shiva's does like 45, Shadow Walk would do 50. That sounds kind of fun to me. Hood Vanguard into Deso, yeah, I don't know if that works. Because it takes too long for that to be effective, and you can still die with Hood Vanguard. It's almost like you need to like punish the shit out of the support or something. Very often. Like get Shadow Walk level 1 with an Orb of Venom or some shit. Like actually do something like that. I almost feel like that's better than going Janata. Orb of Venom, Shadow Walk, First Blood, and then yeah, that actually sounds better. 16 attack slow, 16 movement slow with Orb of Venom. You could actually like run somebody down and get a First Blood. That feels okay to me. And then transition that into Ring of Health and harassing the carry out of lane with Janata. And then Vanguard, Greaves. That's kind of how you have to play the hero, I think. And then from there, you're kind of like annoying on the map and hard to kill. Maybe throw in a cloak for some magic resistance. All right, Bristleback base health regen increased. Hero got pretty nerfed in the previous patch where he was very strong. And he's not being played, so he's getting a little buff there. Make his laning stage a little safer. Brood getting pretty big nerf. Spiderling vision radius reduced. That's a huge difference. 700 is pretty high. 400 means they're blind, which is how spiders should be. Root duration decrease for Spinner Snare, so it just doesn't disable as long. Chaos Strike crit minimum increased. 20 talent is buffed, so 0.75 more stun based stun duration. That talent's getting kind of good, I dare say. It's got a higher win rate, which kind of makes sense. Reality with pure spell immunity is almost always the one, right? Because you're like, oh, I need to kill this BKB carry, and I can because I have a lot of physical damage with my ulti. But if you're stun, the min stun is 1.25. I'm sorry, it's 2 late game. So this puts your stun at 2.75 second stun, and it could last for 4.75, which is crazy. Like it's just a straight up 0.75 second more stun. And with Shard, the cooldown goes... It doesn't get reduced anymore, does it? You have a talent, though. So you can have a 7-second cooldown stun that can stun for 4.75 seconds. That seems kind of bonkers. Like, if you just get a blink late game and you just blink stun people, that's how you kill people. Like, fuck this, like, oh, they're BKB'd, so we're going to kill them through BKB. No, just stun them and then kill them so they can't BKB. That seems a lot better. So definitely could be like a CK thing, and that you're stunning all the time. And if I get Chaos Knight and ability draft, I am definitely getting Chaos Bolt, I feel like, because that just seems broken. Cast range is like decent, I think. Does this upgrade it? Yeah, it does. So it's like a 600 cast range ability with a 2.75 second min stun and a 4.75 max stun. That just seems good on a 7-second cooldown. That's like incredibly good. It won't work for support CK though, because that's the level 20 talent. So it takes too long for that to get online, is the problem. But definitely appealing. And I don't think the stun does that much damage either, so you can't rely on it as like your only source, and your other skills don't do enough damage, so it won't work. CM, allied mana regen outside of proximity radius decreased. So this is the amount of mana that you give globally. So that's going to be reduced a little bit. CM was played quite a lot at TI. It trended down a little bit at the end, but was still popular. So the close mana regen is still really high, up to 3, but the global one is a lot lower. It used to be 1.5, and so now it's basically triple. It's triple for global, and I'm sorry, triple for nearby, and 6 times for yourself. So Yeah, a little bit weaker on the map. It'll still be fine though, I think, because this hero's basically gonna be the same in the laning stage. And drums got buffed if you want to buy that. Drums with shard is kind of good, but if you don't have BKB, it's kind of bad. Dark Willow Bramble Maze damage per tick has gone up. That's kind of a lot. 65 times 5, so that's 15 times 5. It's 75 more damage per Bramble, so that's pretty good. Decent amount of damage if they run through those. Dazzle Poison Touch is buffed. Hero was basically untouched at TI. So Poison Touch lasting longer. It's pretty big at level 1. It lasting 5 seconds instead of 4 is a big deal. Mana cost goes up, but I think it's justified. Like, you have quite a lot of mana on Dazzle early on, so it lasting 5 seconds I think is really good. Keep in mind though, Wraith Pact does work against Dazzle. He does mostly physical damage with the spell, so Wraith Pact will reduce your Dazzle damage. But yeah, 5-second Poison Touch is really good. Further kind of like justifies you not leveling this up that much, I feel like. Like, you really only need like 2 points of this skill. Any more than that as a support and you're kind of griefing your game. Because like the ability is good, but you don't really spend a lot of time right clicking later on. You spend a lot of time sitting around your allies. That's more common. Death Prophet, Crypt Swarm level 1 damage, all levels increase, but mostly going to matter at level 1 for last hitting. 85 damage, your opponents can't deny through that pretty much. And then Magic Resistance talent buffed up to 14. So good things for Death Prophet. Here's still fine. Like, it didn't get played at TI much, but I was a little surprised that it wasn't, because I thought it was decent right before. But yeah, her win rate's actually not that incredible. In fact, it's really been bad in November, but at least the last couple days, for whatever reason. I know they nerfed Spirit Siphon recently, if I'm not mistaken, but I can't remember exactly what got nerfed. Do not remember. Disruptor, decently popular at TI. Mana cost for Glimpse is going up. 15 mana at all levels, and Static Storm AoE talent has been nerfed because apparently it was too bonkers. It covered the whole screen. And once you get 25 in Disruptor, you usually have Ags anyway, so it's kind of insane. I bet Disruptor had like a crazy high win rate in ultra late game, which is rare that you get to 25 in this hero, but yeah. Makes sense to nerf him a bit. Glimpse max damage, way more win rate. Kind of makes sense, because the damage goes up to like 550, which is fucking crazy. Huge amount of damage. But Static Storm duration seems so good. But the last 6, it is overkill a little bit. Anyways, Disruptor, one of those heroes that I struggle with a little bit, because I do best if I just like fight in the laning stage, and Disruptor you have to pick your battles, and I'm not good at that. I just want to always fight to the death. And if you get behind on Disruptor, you get dumpstered, so that's usually my problem with Disruptor, is that I always try to fight and then I'm behind, and then the hero feels bad if you're losing. You need to like win with him. So yeah. Doom Scorched Earth damage per second is increased a little bit. It's fine. Dragon Knight base damage increase. Cooldown reduction. Buffed. I think DK was he one of the unpicked heroes at TI? I think he was. We did a segment on this. So more base damage for laning. Ulti is more availability. It lasts for 60 seconds out of 105, so that's pretty big. Does he have a cooldown reduction talent on his ulti? He does not. Maybe he used to, but he is not currently. So anyways, pretty big uptime. The Breathe Fire damage talent is pretty cool. Ups the damage a lot. Goes up to like 500 or something in dragon form. And more cast range on it too. So it just breathes really far. And Dragon Tail stun, higher win rate, because you're getting more kills with the higher stun duration. Makes sense. Damage talent slightly better, but yeah, his talents are the win rates look pretty one-sided, but oh yeah, his win rate's not good. He's just like a much worse version of like any other offlaner is the problem. You know, you just much rather pick other heroes that team fight better. And tower pushing is not like the most important thing right now. Gust nerfed, way too good early, which makes sense. And a lot of drows actually would leave this at like 1 point. So I think this is a good way to like force people to actually skill it. I've definitely seen drow range just have like 1 gust and go stats instead, which I think is disgusting. Make them put skill points in. It's a good ability. Stops movement, interrupts like 4 staffs and stuff. It's a good ability. Stone Remnant cooldown decreased. Magnetized duration talent increased. That's pretty good. From 2 to 3. Magnetize lasts, what, 6 seconds? It does. So this would be up to 9. So this means that when you use, if you get that talent instead of rolling boulder distance, and everybody gets rolling boulder distance, by the way, because rolling boulder distance is godly, right? Like you use it all the time. The distance is huge. But if you get magnetized duration, this would mean that when you ulti your opponents, you don't have to refresh nearly as often. it lasts 9 instead of 6. It means every time, usually in a fight, you refresh it at least twice, right? But now you could probably get away twice to 4 times if you really need to kill somebody. But now you won't need to refresh it as much. So that will save you stone remnants, which is good. This increases the amount of remnants by 4 as well. So anyways, basically solving some remnant problems on Earth Spirit, which is a cool way to do it. But with that said, people are still probably always going to get rolling boulder distance, because if you get that, it also saves you stones, because now you don't have to use a stone to roll every time if it's like a shorter range roll, you know? So I don't know. It should be a help for the hero. Demonic conversion, Eidolon attack range damage is decreased, so worse early. Another way to nerf Enigma whose win rate's too high. More buffs to Inkswell for Grimstroke. Keep in mind the shard was already buffed, so it life steals while it does tick damage. Tick damage is 55 for 3 seconds, so that damage will heal you a little bit now. And then Dark Portrait can now be used on spell immune enemies. So if they're BKB'd, you can still use it. So a little buff to the Ags there to make it easier to use. And then, which means actually that you can now ulti people that have BKB on them. And still Dark Portrait. So no matter what, like Grimstroke can be... Basically, Grimstroke is just straight up going to be more viable to like rush Ags on. Because now, no matter what, as long as you're not like chain stunned and die, you can always ulti and Dark Portrait through magic immunity. So you would argue that he is a counter to carries who have a lot of stats and who buy BKB. So any stat type heroes, Dark Portrait's still going to be amazing because it does 50% more damage than the hero does, which is about the same depending on how much green damage they have. And they still die fast, but the Dark Portraits are spell immune. So yeah, very good. And then Soulbind damage. Oh, I forgot about this talent. Yo, okay, this I totally forgot about this talent. This shit is so broken, actually. Like Grimstroke Shadow Demon is actually probably so broken. Grimstroke SD. So this is why it's broken. I gotta show you guys. Like Grimstroke combos really well with like really powerful single target abilities, right? Because you're getting 2 of them. But with Shadow Demon's one, it's like really good. And the reason is because 2 of Shadow Demon's second skills are just kind of like broken. Because the way it works is it amplifies a single target damage they take, and it does AoE. So if we have 2 enemies... So this is a Timber with no damage or whatever. So it's broken because if I do AoE hypothetically, and let's do this. So here's like a best case scenario, right? Oops. So let's say I have Shadow Poison on both of these guys. These guys are going to take an absolute fuckload of damage, right? So I'll show you 3 examples. So this is like insane best case scenario, basically. Why did they take... Oh, of course they take the same damage because he takes 35% extra and it's spread. So that's normal. All right. So anyways, they both had a lot of Shadow Poison. I basically did a buttload of damage to them, right? But now if I do this again and I get 2 Disseminates instead, then I'm doing an extra 35% damage, and it's affecting both of them. I should do this with Veil as well. Okay. And then if I do this, now it does even more. So I did like a little bit over 1600 damage because now they're getting double disseminated, which is crazy. And now I could use this talent to do 25% extra damage on top of that. So let's prep it again. Yeah, you're right. I should just free spell, huh? Look how much damage that is. Like, it's actually kind of bonkers. So this is assuming that they both have Shadow Poison. Oops. Let's do it this way, actually. Like, it's still a lot of damage. If they all take 600. I guess it's better... It works better, though, if I'm doing more AoE. So... Like, if we do this Soulbind, and then I have, like, a nuke hero. I need one more ally. Let's do, like... Quap ulti or something. Is probably a good example. So I will do... Let's just do this. It's kind of like Fatal Bonds in a way. It really is similar. But this talent, with like allies that do a lot of damage, it's just kind of bonkers good. In my opinion. Maybe it's like not looking as amazing as I thought it would. If we have 2 people latched together or whatever, but... But like, see what I mean? Like, so that was like Shadow Poison landing on 2 people, and this ulti, which basically ends up doing like 75%. Oh, it does 25% more first. And then it does 75% more from this. I'm also not level 20, by the way, so I can. This could be higher. But, I mean, that was kind of a shitload of damage, right? Line and Lena would still be amazing. They are good because they would double the single target, you're right. But I think this skill is really, really, really good with AoE. Because it's like a slightly better version of Fatal Bonds. I mean, it's basically, it's similar to Fatal Bonds, right? If you Fatal Bonds Grimstroke ulti, you're doing... a lot more AoE damage because every nuke that you hit is amplified by like 25%, right? And this is the same. Every nuke that you hit is amplified by 35% in an AoE. So it makes your AoEs better. That's why I use Quap as an example, because the 310 ends up becoming a lot of damage if there's 2 disseminates. But it works fine by itself too. It's still like 35% more damage. But yeah, it increases your damage by a lot. Potentially. So like a Grimstroke plus Warlock is not a very good support duo. But if you can get them on the same team, it's a buttload of damage. And there was a period of time where people were abusing Soulbind and Fatal Bonds, because plus AoEs, because the damage it did was just insane. It was like you just couldn't really play against it because it amped the damage too much. And I genuinely believe Disseminate is like a potential to be really good. Not that SD is like a perfect hero, but Soulbind talent only amps single target damage spells. So spells that are duplicated by Soulbind. One way we can test this. I want to see first if they take the same damage. Okay, they took the same damage. Was that extra? $290, 10. Okay, so it definitely amplifies the damage to both.
Your queen moves. Your middle tower is under
298, 2980 is what it was. No, it amplifies all damage. Oops. Let's watch. 2975 is what I saw. 2920. Yeah, it amplifies all damage. So yeah, this works really well. Soulbind spell damage will work very good with Fatal Bonds and with Disseminate. So Grimstroke Shadow Demon, definitely very strong. It's going to amplify all the damage you deal. With that said, if they have BKBs, it's less good, right? But if you can like Soulbind 2 cores together, then and disseminate them, then it's really good. Oh yes, and he still can't. He needs to BKB ahead of time, basically. Alright. Amp is still there regardless. It only duplicates single target spells, correct. But the important thing that it's duplicating is disseminate. If it duplicates disseminate, then any damage that becomes dealt is going to be spread. So disseminate is all you need to be put on them so that any other hero with AoEs works really well. So it basically makes, so if you put 2 disseminates on your opponents and your team has AoE spells normally not good with Grimstroke, they will suddenly be good with Grimstroke because Grimstroke facilitates disseminate and disseminate facilitates AoEs. So if you throw a 300 damage nuke on the enemy team and there's 2 disseminates there, your 300 damage nuke is now going to do like 500 damage. It's a huge increase. It's a huge increase. So yeah. And a Veil on top of that. So yeah, SD plus Veil is probably the way to go, is my feel. Fatal Bonds meme with that talent. Yep, Fatal Bonds is really good too with that hero. Same thing. You could argue that that one's way more known about, but the SD one is very viable, I think, potentially. Okay, where are we at? Slowly making our way through the patch. Very slowly. Gyrocopter. Talent flak cannon attacks increased from 2 to 3. So a little bit more flak on this hero. This hero was played at TI as a Marcy pairing. You pick Marcy, Gyro becomes better because if Gyro has Ags, you can sidekick him even if he's stunned, and with Ags he's still attacking. So that was the goal. 65% lifesteal on Gyro is pretty good. If Ags didn't do this, the hero would not be very popular. But I know Thunder Predator or Thunder Awaken played Gyro a decent amount. He still wasn't like that high win rate, but it was a decent idea. Also, people pick Gyro to counter Enigma in lane, so that was the other reason. So if they pick Marcy, they felt protected against Enigma because then they could pick Gyro. Gyro would clear Eidolons with Flat Cannon, and later on be effective with Marcy's sidekick, which was 65 lifesteal. So that was the Gyro plan at TI. It did okay. It was a cool idea, but it wasn't like super effective. It was generally outcarried by other heroes. That's what it felt like. But more Flat Cannon is helpful, sure. Keeper of the Light, turn rate increased by a little bit, so it's easier to like turn around, cast Illuminate, and then run away, or turn around, cast Blinding Light, run away. Base damage will make his laning better because his base damage is pretty bad. It'll help him as a core too, maybe a little bit, but not that big of a deal. Kunkka Ghost Ship width increased, so easier to land. Roam bonus movement speed is increased a bit too. Little buffs to Kunkka. Legion, Moment of Courage, proc chance increased up to 12, so that would put it at 37. Yeah, 37% chance. That's pretty high proc chance. AoE press the attack is pretty fucking cool, but apparently it's not that incredible. It always sounds so amazing, right? You're like, oh my god, I'm gonna unstun my whole team, is what you think is gonna happen. And it's a lot of heal too. It's minimum 300, maximum 500 health regen to your team. In fact, that one is just straight up better. The overwhelming odds damage talents are not that incredible. This one's good. The radius one makes sense because you'll hit more people, but hero damage one, people aren't, that's not really like how you play the heroes, the problem. But yeah, if you get press attack HP regen, it makes sense that you'd get AoE press the attack in my mind. Why would you not? Just better for your whole squad. You can kill buildings faster too. Press the attack grants spell immunity. Yep, that one's good. And if you have the AoE press the attack, you definitely grab spell immunity. So like that's the thing. If you get this talent and then you make it to 25, it's obvious which one you get. Moment of Courage, lifesteal. That talent's pretty cool though. Anyways, Legion looks fun, but unfortunately the hero still kind of has issues, I feel like. Maybe you can justify her if you play like more frontliner, tanky, and less like blink and duel a guy. But unfortunately that's kind of how the hero functions. So, but maybe there's something you could do with like a Vanguard and a pipe or something on the hero. Legion, Vanguard, pipe. Vanguard and Crimson pipe could potentially work. What about Legion with Battle Fury, guys? That actually sounds kind of sick. Legion Battle Fury. Sounds fun, actually. Legitimately fun. Because every time you proc Moment of Courage, you do some cleave. Like, you might be able to play Legion against PL. That'd be really fun. Get that overwhelming odds talent. Nuke his illusions, fight him to the death. You've seen Legion Battle Fury position 1? I've never seen that, I feel like. Sounds fun, though. It's not good. kind of. Sounds fun though. Sounds very fun. But yeah, you're not really getting much value out of your ulti is the problem. If you go Battle Fury first. What's her stat gain? Her edge gain's pretty shit is the problem. So like you're not gonna, your movement speed's really good though. But you would get a lot of damage from duel. Like you can make up the attack speed later with other things. And you could probably justifiably buy Armlet on this hero too. Because you get lifesteal from Moment of Courage. You could get it back. But you're just going to get kited later. You don't have like a natural slow outside of duel is the other issue. So if you get like a basher or something, maybe it makes sense later. But anyways. Enough theory crafting. I'll write it down. Legion. Battle of Fury. You sure would farm fast. Leshrac. Does Moment of Courage proc hit effects? It's just an attack. It's just your hero attacking, so it can proc anything that your hero does. Yep. Yeah, 330 movement speed on Legion is genuinely really, really fast. Leshrac, Egg Split Earth, Egg Shard, radius bonus decreased a little bit, so it won't be quite as good to defend with it. Pulse Nova now is a 1-second cooldown after it's toggled off, so you can't turn it off and on rapidly to get more damage. It used to be a little bit faster, so you could increase your damage at the cost of mana, which was very before it wasn't that big of a deal because you're like, oh, you're spending mana, whatever. But now it's kind of broken with Bloodstone because you usually get lots of mana anyways. And then damage is decreased by 10, so just a little bit of damage decrease. And mana regen talent is nerfed, so a little bit harder to keep your mana full. But is Lesh still really good? Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that Lesh is still going to be really good. But 10 less damage on Pulse Nova is certainly helpful. Because it means if you get Bloodstone before 12, like your damage is just going to be 10% less from AoE. So that's good. Lion Earth Spike damage is buffed again. 95 damage, still 260 at high level. 20 talent is buffed. 3 hex cooldown, that puts it down to 9, I think. So pretty high uptime on hex if you get there. 65 Earth Spike damage at 10 still. But Lion with Shard is probably still the way to play the hero. Because it just seems really good. Plus 400 break distance. The slow ends up being 45%. And yeah, your hex cooldown later is good. I'd probably skill the hex, to be honest, versus Finger of Death damage per kill. Hex is an incredible disable. But Lion himself is still very squishy, so it's hard to survive in some of those late game situations without Shard. You need Shard for that reason. Marcy, one of the most picked and banned heroes at TI, definitely getting nerfed. Let's see, cast and jump range decreased by so much. Oof. 450. Not that people weren't maxing rebound, but like you really have to max rebound now. Because now like 450 range is small. You can't just like escape as readily now. Your opponent's, the Marcy's allies need to be much closer to them. The bonus movement speed scales as well. Has that always been there? And then jump speed is decreased as well. So you don't like yeet yourself in quite as fast, which is good. And then sidekick lifesteal has been dropped by another 5%, which is fine. You can't do max sidekick on position 5? What do you mean? Anyways, the rebound range being smaller is huge because that means Marcy's have to play closer to where they need to be. Like before, Marcy kind of like sits in the jungle or whatever and she can run over and jump like 800 range and get in. But now she has to actually like walk over ahead of time. So it's going to be a lot harder for Marcy to hit windows if she's not in lane. If she like wants to go run to a rune or something, it's not going to be quite the same. So there's going to be like cases where Marcy's just aren't as effective getting kills and they miss opportunities. So if you continue to play safe against Marcy, it's not going to be the worst. But if the Marcy is in lane, like directly next to the offlaner, and you die, it is still your fault, unfortunately, because she's still going to be really effective there, and because her rebound is effectively the same. She won't be able to launch as far. That's important. She can't like launch 800 units. She can't jump 800 units to the ally and 800 units towards you. She can only jump 450 to 450. So her total jump distance is now only 900 instead of it being 1600, which is a huge change, right? But if they're standing next to you and you're standing at the creep wave and they jump on you, it's still your fault. So, but if you want to be safe against Marcy now, you just need to sit back farther. All right, Mars Bulwark, speed penalty when active decrease. That's a buff to Bulwark and ability draft. Very good to know. So less the movement speed penalty is not much. And then 20 talent, front side damage reduction is increased, and that's 12%. So from the front, you're only taking 18% damage instead of 20. And from the side, you are only taking 59 instead of 60. So a little bit better to take that talent. But everyone gets a Spear of Mars stun because it's more ulti damage. You're potentially stunning 2 people. I just don't see that talent. It's got decent win rate, but it's probably in rare cases where like you're against a Medusa or something. Because if you're like against a Medusa or a Drow and you turn on Bulwark and you tank that damage to the front, it is a huge amount of damage reduction. Like a really huge. Here's the active redirect damage that nobody takes, basically. But again, against a Medusa or something. What's the redirect when you shield? When active, reduces movement speed and redirects 70% of the projectiles towards Mars. So if you get that 10 talent, it means that turning your shield on tanks 100% of the attacks. Which seems good. So I get why that seems value. With that said, when I played with God's Rebuke the other day, the distance on God's Rebuke is sometimes feels a little bit short, so the extra 100 makes sense. Farm, kill potential, everything. But if you use Bulwark well, being able to block, to redirect 100% of the attacks towards you when you have 70% damage reduction, that shit's really good. That's tower shots. That's like when towers glyph, basically. You can tank all those hits and reduce it by 70%, which is massive. So I don't know. That seems pretty good to me. I see why that has a really high win rate. Because against some range carry, you're absolutely going to use that at some point in the game. Whereas the 100 extra distance, good, but not necessarily mandatory, I feel like. The redirect is that it only works in a cone behind you instead of how it used to work when it was AoE. Cone behind you. So it used to just tank all attacks, but now it only blocks the ones directly behind you. Okay. Which is kind of how it should be done. But yeah, Blade Mail Mars against Medusa is actually good because you redirect her attacks and then you Blade Mail reflect them. But yeah, if it's only the people directly behind you, it makes it a little bit harder to use. But this is like such a big win rate increase. I can't help but think that it has some value. But I see pros use Bulwark. I feel like I don't see that many other people use it, but that's probably because I'm paying attention to playing instead of watching people play Mars in pubs. Your ally has to be directly behind you. Okay. I mean, you could stand in front of creep waves and use it on towers, you know, like there's definitely some uses there. I mean, it is a glyph counter. Those are really powerful. It's awkward since the change. Okay. But glyph counters are really broken at certain times in the game. Like Liquid Fire, you'd be like, oh, well, they're all dead, but they've got glyphs. We don't care. You just Liquid Fire the tower and the glyph just buys seconds. It doesn't clear the creep wave. It doesn't buy 40 seconds for a new creep wave to come. It buys them like 6 seconds. That's really powerful. It redirects attacks aimed at allies so they hit Mars. Yes. So like if someone's standing behind Mars and I'm throwing a ranged attack at that hero behind Mars, he can turn on his shield and then my attack will hit Mars instead of the guy behind him. So it's like a shield. And because it's being reduced by 70, it's way better for Mars to take that hit than somebody behind me that's squishy. It's very good. All right, Medusa cast range, snake cast range increased. Projectile speed now increased 15% with each bounce. Okay, so this can be easier to hit people with the snake. This is a pretty big buff in laning stage, I feel like. Because it usually bounces a couple times. The bounce speed is kind of low. So if you're standing close to a creep wave, you deserve to be hit by the snake. That seems fine to me. It's going to make it better at all stages of the game. And the snake will get back to you faster, actually. That's another really cool part, actually. Is that if it bounces through a bunch of creeps and heroes, the time that it takes to get back to you is going to be faster. Because it's now bounced like 5 or 6 times, right? So it's increased speed by 15%, then another 15, then another 15, then another 15. It's got to be like way faster on the way back. So that's a cool buff to Medusa. I like it. Monkey King Wukong's command armor bonus increased by 2 early, so a little bit better early, and cast point improved by 1 second. That's actually pretty nice. It'll make it a lot easier to combo with your stun, which is where Monkey King gets a lot of value. The armor from Wukong command, whatever, but the cast point bonus is really good. That part's really good. Morphling was pretty popular at TI. His Ags against agility carries was broken. I'm surprised it didn't get nerfed here. But it basically steals their agility and it also reduces their attack speed by like 60. So Morphling was trending during the group stage because it was a very, very strong carry against a lot of agi cores. Against like int-based heroes, it doesn't matter that much. Like, so it kind of fell off, I feel like, because heroes like Leshrac were just better. And it was maybe a little bit slow and pressurable, but waveform is nerfed by 1 second. Ag Scepter no longer reduces cooldown. It used to reduce it. So the uptime was pretty high, I think, but I don't remember exactly how much it was. And then 2 waveform charges removed and set its waveform cooldown. So waveform cooldown could become, why is it minus 40%? That's so confusing. Normally a cooldown just says minus a number. This doesn't reduce. It's really weird that it says waveform cooldown as a percentage. They never do that. It's always a number. So if it's 40%, that should be like, I mean, basically we just say 12 times 0.6. That should be our new cooldown. So it should be 7.2 seconds if it, if the math is the way that I understand it. But that's significantly worse. Like, you'll still cast about as many waveforms per second, but now you can't waveform in and waveform out is what it prevents, which is fine. So 12 seconds, and then if I get this, it's now 7.2. So it does work the way that I expected. I'm not sure why they did percentage, maybe just to start this. If you do a raw number, like if I get Octarine, let's see what it does. Not that this is a build you would do. What was it, 7.2 times 0.75. Oops. 7.2 times 0.75 equals 5.4. Okay, so yeah, so it's reducing your base cooldown by percentage for some reason. I don't know why they didn't just have it be reduced to 7. Stacks multiplicatively. But it's not like that much better than just reducing the cooldown by 5 seconds. Like this could say waveform cooldown reduced by 5 seconds. It could just say that instead. I don't know why it says minus 40% waveform cooldown. With Octarine, it could be better. Not really. The minus seconds is usually very good with Octarine because it lowers it a lot before an Octarine would reduce it. If it reduced it to just 7 seconds, it would have been fine, I feel like. But for some reason, they did percentage. It's like no different than stacking multiple sources of cooldown reduction. Minus 40% waveform cooldown is the same as like minus 40, like cooldown reduction, you know? Minus 40 looks better than 5 seconds. It does look better. I would agree with that. That's like the only good argument that I've read so far. So yeah. What's the duration of this? 20 seconds. So you can't be that close to uptime. Isn't a percentage worse with Octarine since it stacks worse? No. The way that percentages stack is that, let's say I have a 25% cooldown and another 25. You take 10-second cooldown, you reduce it by 25, that's 7.5. And then you reduce that by another 25%, which becomes like 5.25 or something. I don't know. 75 times 0.75 equals 5625. So every time it's the same with like other stuff in Dota. It's like, oh, you're amplifying your damage, you're reducing their magic resistance by 25%, and then you're doing it again. Well, it's like you're just take off 25%, take off 25%. It's kind of how it works. If you had Spell Prism and eggs, you could have gotten a lot of value. It's less now? I don't think so. I don't think it is. It's not that different. Like these still stack. The way the cooldown's now 4.8. I mean, it's good. It's definitely not bad. I mean, it's definitely a nerf to the hero. But I'm trying to like figure out something that is like janitor like, where, you know, Valve sometimes isn't consistent with the way they describe buffs and nerfs. There's like a nomenclature that I'm used to reading because I've read it for years, but sometimes they, for whatever reason, decide to write the math in a different way, which leads to slight confusion. Because I wonder if it's like different for a reason, you know? All right, Naga Siren, strength gain decreased a little bit, base armor decreased by 1. Here's very tanky, so she'll be fine. She was played at TI by Tundra, by the way. Was not like a star of the tournament, but she was popular. And if it wasn't for like Pudjags and Leshrac being very viable, she'd probably see more play. Nature's Prophet cooldown on teleport is are buffed actually by a couple seconds, not much. Curse of the Old Growth, haven't seen a single person buy this ever. The duration's up by 1. Curse on all enemy heroes within range, displaying them in fog, slowing them, and causing damage over time, based on the number of trees. I mean, I get that it's way worse than Old Prophet, shard, but I don't know, this seems kind of cool. You could hypothetically like TP into base and then cast this, because 1200 range is huge. You could definitely, like, if somebody's defending Rex, you could TP into their trees, cast the spell, and then I don't know if you're going to get out after that point or whatever, but like you could definitely use it for vision if you wanted. And it's 15 damage per second for 7 seconds, so that's per tree. You want to see NP more to a legit pusher? I mean, he's still a good pusher. He's just not like as cheese push because of the shard change, which is good, I think. Ghost Shroud buffed, increased magic damage from Ghost Shroud decreased down to 25. That's really nice. He's not going to get bursted nearly as quickly with Ghost Shroud now, so it's probably always valuable to use Ghost Shroud now. Whereas before, if you're against magic damage lineups, it almost always just felt really, really bad. Keep in mind that using Ghost Shroud with Barrier is really good, though. Remember I was talking about Barrier earlier. If you're decreasing your magic resistance, but use a barrier, it's more effective. So if you want to use, if they're about to do magic damage to you and you want to use Ghost Shroud, you should always save the barrier for right before you Ghost Shroud, because then it will block a much higher percentage of damage, because it'll block damage before it applies to your Ghost Shroud reduced resistance. So Hood on Necro, very common, so keep that in mind. So if you need to heal halfway through the combo, Ghost Shroud, barrier, Death Pulse Wand. If you do that all really quick, then you'll get a lot of heal back, and they'll try to burst you, and it's not actually going to do that much. Unless they do like 1,000 damage. Talking about Crystal Growth. A lot of damage minute 15 to 20 when you body block with Transfer and Sprout. I mean, that is true. The cooldown's only 18 seconds. Like, it's really not much. That's really low. And Sprout is like, what, 6 trees or something? I think it's 6 trees to... So 6 times 15. Let's see how many trees it is first. Like, you're right. You genuinely could do like some fucking Dagon build with Sprout.
Through shady lanes.
Oops. Hand in a weird place. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 trees.
Prepare for battle.
I mean, that's kind of sick. 8 times 15. That's 120 damage times 7 seconds. This feels underused to me. That's 840 damage, guys. You have to keep them near the trees for the seconds? Oh. Okay, so it doesn't... You can't just, like, Sprout cast it. But if you do, like, Sprout, cast it, and then Nature's Call and walk treants with them, they're going to take a lot of damage, basically, because that's 5 trees, and then you get +5 summoned. I mean, kind of cool. Nobody does it, but it's kind of cool. You can get up to like 10 later, but what's the slow? The slow is 7 per tree. So if there's 5 times 7 is 35, right? So 35% slow for 7 seconds. It can do the first couple seconds for 3 seconds. We'll say 2 seconds. 2 times 15. So it does like times 8. So for the first 2 seconds, it does like 240 damage. Then you summon treants. And then it's 5 times 5 times 15. That's 25 times 15. That's 250, 375 maybe. 5 times 5 times 15. Yeah, it's 375 plus 240. So if you do a Sprout, summon 4 Nature's Call, and use your shard, you're doing 615 damage to somebody. And you're getting them for like a 35% slow, assuming they don't kill any of the treants. It's pretty good, but it is money to spend. So, and you're also using Nature's Call to right-click a hero instead of other stuff. So I don't know. I could see it work maybe. I'm not a good Prophet player, so there's no way I should try this. And almost always it's just better to buy damage items. Like you buy an Orchid and kill somebody rather than fuck around with a shard. But it does sound undervalued to me. I would agree with this. But I legit haven't seen anybody buy it yet. All right, Nyx Assassin, spike duration decreased, the stun duration. That's pretty big, 2 seconds instead of 2.4. Spike Carapace is kind of bonkers, and there's that talent at 20 that increases the stun duration by 0.6. So if you proc Spike Carapace, it's a 3-second stun, which is mega value. Nyx was picked a little bit at TI, but I don't remember seeing him constantly. But this is probably a justifiable nerf, because you shouldn't be able to rely on Spike Carapace alone to just stun people for like 3 seconds, and then also have Impale, which is almost 3 seconds. But Spike Carapace setting up for Impale is usually how pro players use it. They use it to reflect a stun that their opponents don't know is going to be reflected, and then they set up an Impale and get that kill, is usually how they play the hero. So I think nerfing this is fine. The hero's still playable. This isn't going to affect low-level pubs much. It's only going to affect like good players, I feel like, mostly. I mean, maybe that's not true because there's a lot of times it Nyx Spike Carapace to run away, but either way. Ogre Magi base health regen increase. That's pretty big for Ogre. His armor got buffed. His base damage got buffed. His health regen got decreased. And now it's being buffed again. So his survivability in lane is going to be even better. You know, over a minute, that's 30 more HP. So, not bad for Ogre. Ogre's still not really a viable core, but I mean, you can maybe make it work. I still like playing the hero, but Ignite DPS is good. Fire Blast cooldown is potentially good. What's his base damage now? It's really high. It's really, really high. 69 to 75. It's really solid. I wonder if there's viability with like Windlace or maybe Orb of Venom Bloodlust or something. What's this movement speed? 290 times 0.07. It's like 20 movement speed, so you'd be like 310. If you had a Windlace, you'd be like 331, 332 movement speed, which is pretty good. I could see like a Windlace on Ogre being decent right now. Maybe not Orb of Venom because it's a little overkill. Even though it like helps you trade better, like trade more often when you choose to, like you can still slow people with like Ignite and Fire Blast maybe. But maybe the Orb of Venom is just straight up better than the Windlace. Because with like Bloodlust is already spending mana. If you're relying on Ignite and Fire Blast to also run down your opponent, it's kind of expensive. So but I could definitely see like Orb of Venom will fall off on Ogre almost instantly. Windlace will not. So maybe just like Windlace, Bloodlust, Ogre could be decent with regen. Until they start 2v1ing you. But if you're fighting like an enemy support, Ogre definitely can work with like Bloodlust, I think. 30 attack speed, tons of damage, really solid armor. Not as incredible as it used to be, but solid armor and okay regen. I guess it's not amazing, it's only 3, but I don't know, I could see it. You think Ogre's talents are bad? I would agree. The only fun ones are the 20-25, basically. The Ignite DPS one can be good against the right heroes, but Ogre is just a mildly boring hero, it's true. Multicasting is fun. I like being tanky as a support. I think that's enjoyable. And the fact that you are tanky and your opponents don't want to kill you, I think is kind of fun. I'm level 17. Progress? Oh yeah, this is going to be my first platinum hero, actually. I don't have any platinum heroes. I think he's my highest. Where's CM? CM's also 17. Yeah. Anyways. All right, Pangolier. Shield crash, cooldown and ball increased a little bit. Pango was pretty popular at TI. PA base health regen up. Phantom Strike mana cost is decreased. You can farm a little better with Phantom Strike in the jungle now. A little bust here. Primal Beast. Very strong at TI. Nerfs early for onslaught damage. Run is now cancelled if Primal Beast is stunned during it. Thank God. So if he gets stunned on the way through onslaught, he doesn't keep going and bash people. This is very needed. This is gonna, we'll probably see how crappy this feels, but I imagine there's gonna be a lot of cases where this feels bad. Before, the only way to stop it would be like you have to move his hero, like Gust or something would work, but things like Fissure would not. So Fissure, Arrow, it's gonna be much better ways to deal with it now. Arrow's a pretty cool one, actually. Stop him from approaching at all. It's pretty important. Dream Coil initial damage is up a bit. Pudge base health regen nerfed a tiny bit. Flesh heap cooldown increased late game. That's actually pretty big. 17 instead of 14, and it lasts, I think, 8 seconds or something. It doesn't even say on the tooltip, unfortunately. It should. It really should. But the uptime ultra late game, I think this is just important because there's like a couple of heroes that Pudge just like super fucking hard counters. Like Skywrath ulti super hard counters him. There's like a couple ultimates like that Flesh Heap's god tier against. So lowering the uptime in the ultra late game I think is necessary. It should still primarily be a spell that counteracts rot. It's perfect for that. That should not change in my opinion. But the fact that it also completely negates like Sky ulti damage I think is not cool. I don't like that at all. I think that's unfair. Pugna, Nether Blast, cast range increased. That's nice. It's gonna be like you can definitely cheese towers with this. 340 damage, 5-second cooldown. Mana cost is not that bad. Great way to blast towers. Queen of Pain, Shadow Strike can now be ground targeted with Aghanim Scepter. I like that. Makes it an AoE spell. It increases the initial damage from 120 to 200. And when it ends, or it's reapplied, the target emits a Scream of Pain, hitting any nearby enemies. Yo, that guy last night who played Ability Draft with us, he had Shadow Strike with Rubik passive. He should have maxed Shadow Strike and got an Ags. Oh wait, he needs Scream of Pain with it though. Okay. That would have been really sick though. If you could like cast that from long range every like 4 seconds and it would do a Scream of Pain, that'd be really cool. But it ground targeting is really good. The problem with Shadow Strike is that it's one of those AoEs like Lich's Q where you need to click it on a hero and base the AoE on that. But the fact that you can just click it on the ground is just going to be so much better. So much better. I wonder if you could do some kind of like Shadow Strike build where you actually get like an Aether Lens and you just Shadow Strike people all the time instead of blinking in. So the problem with Quap is that when you blink in, they just kill you. So if you could like play like I Shadow Strike people from range all the time with Ags, that would be fun. Maybe I should try this. Quap, Ags, Shadow Strike build. Something like a 4-1-4. You just don't rely on blink that much. Rely on Shadow Strike Ags. I genuinely could see that be valuable. Ups the damage. Get an Octarine. Expensive, but yeah, it would work. Definitely would work. It would be good. It would genuinely be good. Because you'd be casting it every 3 seconds and it gives you cast range. Octarine would be really good with it. The only downside is it does not disable. And it's not mana regen. That part would hurt. You would definitely need some mana regen with this build. Maybe like a Null Talisman or something, or an Urn. I could see Urn work. Not that it's that great. Spirit Vessel certainly isn't that good right now. But yeah, it's weak gank. That's the biggest issue. Is that if your 4 is a Quap that can't gank outside of slowing with a dagger, you are going to have some issues. But yeah, I think Urn would be alright. Your carry player, this is probably a dumb question, but is it a good idea to play SF carry with a Guardian Greaves build? It's fine. It's mech on SF is actually a classic thing. It wasn't like a long period of time, but there was a period of time where Fada played mid and he would buy mech on a lot of heroes. He would buy it on Troll Warlord and he would buy it on Shadow Fiend. And the reason that maybe it's not a good example because in that period of time people had very low HP in Dota. Like it was difficult to have HP. There would be like late game heroes and they'd have like 1,000, 1,200 HP, like 30 minutes into a game. So a mech healing for 250 was like broken, right? Because it was like, oh shit, my whole team gets HP. But Shadow Fiend is a hero that does damage by staying alive, so having mech on him isn't the worst. I would say Greaves is a little bit goofy because the problem with it is that like you can do it. I wouldn't say it's good probably, but if your team wants to like team fight around you, it's cool. I like the idea. It would give you mana with Arcane Boots. And it would give you survivability because your hero does a lot of damage if you stay alive basically. So if you elongate the fights, you get more raises off and more right clicks off, it'd be good. The downside is that it doesn't give you treads, which means your right click is going to be gimped because you're not going to be attacking as quickly. So it makes your second and third skills worse. That part is bad on the build. But if you can transition it into like some attack speed, it'd be okay. Mech Viper, that's true. Mech Viper was cool too. I like that one. All right, anyway, Sonic Wave cooldown is reduced naturally. That's really nice, 90 seconds. I think Quap could potentially be a viable support here, with Shadow Strike being 600. I mean, 600 cast range is not the most, I guess, but I could see it working. And then 20, Sonic Wave cooldown reduction talent reduced, because if it was still 60, your ulti would be too low. But you could lower your ulti down to 50 seconds, which is fine. But yeah, if I'm going Ags, I'm getting that Shadow Strike interval talent, which is 2.3 instead of... Yeah, I'm going to try this. Quap 4. Pause for Ags. Rush with Arcanes. Maybe Arcanes. Maybe Tranquil. Tranquil Earn Wand. Trank Earn Wand. I could see that work. Trank Earned Wand into Ags. Just enough mana regen. A little more offense. I like it. Maybe the Tranquils is a little overkill because you're getting heals from Shadow Strike, but... And you have Urns, so maybe Tranquils is just not needed. Maybe it should be Arcane. Probably Arcane Wand Urn. Maybe put a fluffy hat in there for a little bit more HP would be good, I feel like. That sounds good to me. Yeah, Arcane's probably... If you've got Urn and you've got heal from Dagger, it's fine. Alright, Razor Storm Surge. Ag's shard damage increased to 175. This is part of the reason he's gone Bloodstone, I guess. And the agility talent's buffed. That one's actually a pretty good win rate, I think. Yeah, it's higher. I get it some games when I'm trying to outcarry, but almost all pros get plasma field damage because it allows them to farm faster, and you do 60 more damage, and it helps you burst heroes a little bit too. But I actually do like the agility talent sometimes in a game where I'm worried about outcarrying. Rubik base damage increased by 3. Oh, he's a viable mid, guys. Now, it's just going to help in his laning stage a lot. 3 damage is huge. If he's hitting for like 54 damage now, him trading hits with you is going to be just a lot better because he's already reducing your damage with Fade Bolt by 14%. He reduces your damage, and he hits you decently hard. If you get some Ironwood branches on this hero, it actually might trade a little bit better and feel better as a lane hero. And the damage reduction can be up to 47, which is actually pretty big. Pretty big. All right, we have ads starting soon. I'll press the button. Let's do it. All right, we're just going to take a 3-minute break. I'm going to go to the bathroom quick. While we're waiting... Dude, I'm like drooling thinking about playing Quap 4 right now. I'm like, oh god, it sounds so fun. You should dagger them all the time. Just keep daggering. What can they do? Alright, I'm going to continue. So, Rubik mid may be more viable here because your base damage is a lot higher, but Rubik is not a very effective mid because he's a little bit too squishy. So, his like farm priority is high by being a mid, but he's just very killable. It's like if 2 heroes jump on him late game, he just dies because it's like too many items to both be able to escape damage and also to get damage resistance. So like BKB doesn't solve one problem, it doesn't solve both problems. It just solves the disable part, but it doesn't solve the him being able to escape part. So it's just he's just a much better support. Sand King's base damage goes up by 1 on average is what this means. So slightly better in the lane, but still kind of bad. And then it's like he's got really bad level 1 stats. He's not a good fight to the death hero at early on. And Caustic Finale debuff duration increased by 1. So very good slow, but not exactly. I mean, it's going to be nice for like setting traps in the laning stage, I guess. But oh baby, they buffed the best skill in the game. The radius is increased by 75. It's a big change. It's legitimately, I genuinely believe it's a good ability. It's better than Soul Catcher was back in the day. It doesn't amplify the damage as much as Soul Catcher did, but the fact that it can be used at all stages of the game is really nice. You can use it to amp damage to your opponent. You can use it to jungle, etc. So, Shadow Fiend, level 20 talent Requiem Fear per line decrease. Yeah, this one was really fucking good. Shadow Fiend was used a lot during group stages at TI. This talent wasn't necessarily touched, but I do think that talent was like ridiculous. If you did get that talent and you ultied somebody, they were feared for like way too long with eggs. Way too long. Like it was really long. It was like 5 seconds or something crazy. So definitely way too good. Nerf that shit. Shadow Shaman, Aether Shock, mana cost decreased. So better at late game. And then 10 talent Shackles toll damage increased actually. Okay. I mean, I get Hex cooldown. Everybody gets Hex cooldown actually. I assumed most people get Shackle total damage because they're greedy. I mean, it's kind of a cool talent. You do get heal for it, right? So it helps keep you alive, but only does so much. Now people are playing him to try him out and they're losing because they're like, hey, I'm going to try this talent. That's not how you should play him. You need to like Hex consistently. So, but total damage goes up, duration goes up. I guess if the duration goes up, the damage doesn't go up. That's a little bit of a bummer, but Hex breaks, everybody gets it. Doesn't do much though for a lot of heroes. Aether Shock damage, very cool. Yeah, late game Shadow Shaman doesn't happen the most because you end up dying a lot, but Silencer, Arcane Curse radius is decreased by a lot. Needed. The hero's win rate was really high. Didn't see that much success at TI, but it's good. Definitely does a lot of damage right now. Arcane Curse is definitely better, so radius decrease is more than fair. That's also translates to a cast range decrease on it as well, so keep that in mind when you have a radius decrease for a ground targeted AoE. So it makes it a little bit harder to... You have to stand a little bit closer to use it now. Snapfire, 10 Scatterblast, that's buffed. When they changed the shard to not be Scatterblast focused, this kind of needed to happen because the Scatterblast just became a little bit weaker. But it's fine. Sniper, Shrapnel mana cost upped, radius decreased. I'm totally cool with that. Sniper was played at TI. He was not like an all-the-time hero, but he definitely saw some good success. And Shrapnel early game is definitely too abusable at 50 mana cost. Like you have a huge... Sniper has a huge int gain, so like you always have mana to cast these abilities, even without your ulti. So this is going to actually add a little bit of mana issues to the hero. Stormseer base mana regen increase, sure. Warcry Shard is nerfed by 1, only 6 armor instead of 7. It was really good. And then Sticky Bomb cast point improved. Okay, that's kind of a cool way to buff the hero. Make it a little bit easier to land Sticky Bomb. I would have expected more of a buff to techies, but there will probably be more when the big patch comes out in probably a month or two. I expect they'll rework Ags, number 1, and maybe adjust the second skill or buff it in some way. Maybe add damage to it without Ags, I think would be a good way to improve it. Like if somebody gets disarmed on you, they also take damage. Just something like that would be good, I think. I don't even skill this pre-7 myself, but maybe I should. But most people don't attack you. The mana cost is low, cooldown's really high, and it's a movement speed bonus. That part's good, but I don't know. I'd almost always rather just get an extra point and blast off for more damage. But maybe it's better to go like a 4-1-1 build. So I genuinely don't get taser enough, and there's probably times where the movement speed would keep me alive or help me get a kill or prevent my opponent from killing proxy mines. So I probably should skill taser, I feel like. Cooldown reduction a little bit more powerful. Everybody gets blast off cooldown, which if you get shard makes sense. Okay, Templar Assassin, we are almost done. Sonic Trap, time to full charge decreased from 4 to 3.5. Okay. Terrorblade Reflection cooldown decreased by a little bit, so a little bit easier to lane with Terrorblade with this. Flamethrower duration's up, Whirling Death attribute reduction up a little bit, so a little bit better against strength heroes later on. Tiny, still popular at TI. Radius of avalanche is decreased. Tree Volley cooldown up a little bit. These are just small things, like Tiny did see a decent amount of use. Treant Protector, a hero that was unpicked at TI. I don't think it was banned either. Leech Seed damage is up by quite a bit at level 1. This is significant. And then cast point improved. This is also significant. The cast point sucked, and the cast range sucks too. The fact that it scales higher is better. This means you can actually cast it without dying yourself. Like, Treant doesn't really want to walk in a lot of cases. So like a 400 cast range on Leech Seed was just like too much. So I could actually see him potentially like max Leech Seed now with that cast range being increased. You could also get an Aether Lens and do this, I believe. Aether Lens kind of bad otherwise. It doesn't do anything for living armor. It doesn't do anything for overgrowth. And it will just make your Nature's Grasp longer range. So that's kind of bad. But this does do a lot of heal. There's no talents that buff it until 20. That part sucks. I think they need to move that 20 Leech Seed talent down to 15 for this to have a viable build. But the movement speed slow is kind of sucky, but it's a 5 duration 65 damage heal swing, right? So it's like 325 AoE heal from Leech Seed, which is pretty sick. It's a lot of heal. And living armor does heal per second, not regen, I believe. So you could hypothetically go like get like a Holy Locket and do like a Leech Seed living armor build maybe if you want. Not exactly ideal, I don't think, but maybe against the right lineups it could be good. But I don't know. Leech Seed is it's genuinely close to being a broken ability, but it's just like leveling it doesn't feel that good unless you're fighting with your team, basically. You either need to be keeping yourself alive when you're getting gone on, or you need to use it on somebody to keep your team alive in fights. And that's the only way that it has value. But almost always maxing Nature's Grasp is more important because it helps you hold creep waves and farm and push and damage with your ulti. Many things. And then living armor is almost always the second ability you max out because you need to give armor to your cores and your towers and to heal them. So Leech Seed always becomes third, ends up coming very late. So I don't know, maxing the cast range could make this viable from a support perspective. It actually could, because you could actually walk in and cast Leech Seed and not necessarily have to worry about getting blasted. The radius is actually really big at 650, so you could definitely cast this from max range and heal yourself or allies and contribute to a gank decent. Because again, it's not bad damage. It's an okay damage. It's like 300 damage single target. It's not that incredible for single target, but the AoE heal is nice. So if you paired this with tanky cores, I think it is a cool idea. But almost always like these other abilities are better. But I'd argue living armor actually doesn't scale that well right now. Like you could, 1 point of living armor is not that bad, I guess is what I'm saying. The armor aspect of it doesn't scale that incredible. So, and defending the tower is not that incredible. So I could maybe see like a Treant build where you go like 4-4-1 as the support. That could kind of be cool, I think. Your base movement speed's still pretty ass, but maybe there's a way to make that good. Fast Holy Locket or something. Heal your team with Leech Seed. I don't know. Think his talents are bad. Living armor heal per second. That one's pretty mediocre. Up to 8 for 30. And then Nature's Grasp cooldown. I mean, a lot of people's talents are mediocre right now, unfortunately. There's just a lot of talents that aren't that exciting because they ended up, the exciting ones end up being too good for power spiking is the problem. Leech Speed movement slow. I mean, I could definitely see myself taking that talent finally. The Leech Seed movement slow. I never would before because like you just don't use Leech Seed, but if the cast range is 550, you can actually like cast the spell now. So I'm into that. And they up the damage to overgrowth, of course, by 10. So 30 more damage at level 1. Ags is still bad, I would say, without a doubt, but Shard is kind of cool, but Does 200 damage. Movement speed is 27% instead of 12. Yeah. 144 build with Locket. I mean, Q scales poorly, but you should still max it out. I don't think it scales that badly, actually, because the damage amps with trees, right? So it does 45 damage level 1 with trees, but level 4 it does 90. It's pretty good. 90 damage for 12 seconds. Like, it's a lot of damage, actually. Genuinely a lot of damage. And imagine Leech Seed actually having good slow. It slows for 41%. Now you can, like, Leech Seed Nature's Grasp people. You couldn't do that before. You'd be like, oh, well, I'm going to try to Nature's Grasp. It doesn't work. Whoops, you know. But now if you Nature's Grasp with Leech Seed. Although you can't get the Leech Seed movement speed and the extra damage. Which would have put you at like 135 damage instead of 90. But either way, layering Nature's Grasp slow with Leech Seed slow is probably decent. Like, you actually might be able to do like an Aether Lens build now. Actually, you legit might. Aether Lens, Tree Protector, hiding in trees with Shard. And you just like Leech Seed Nature's Grasp people every 12 seconds. That actually seems good to me. 90 damage per second from Nature's Grasp, 300 some damage to Leech Seed. All right, we're trying this. That sounds... Treant 5 with 441 Aether Lens. And Shard. Hide in trees. Cast 2 spells. Occasionally ulti people. That sounds good. Let's try that. And then with Leech Seed, you can obviously fight a lot in the laning stage, which is fun. Because you will heal. It heals for 100 level 1. That's pretty sick, actually. All right. Troll Warlord, base agility up by 2. Level 20, talent, battle, trance, movement speed increased by 5%. Battle, trance, movement speed increase. Okay. Played him the other day. I had to play against Speed, who was like rank 30. I got fucking dumpstered. He was a hoodwink. If he was like a melee hero, I would have felt okay, but he was a ranged hero, so it just felt really bad. He's much better at last hitting than me, because his MMR is like probably 4,000 higher or some shit, 3,000 higher. So I just got dumpstered. That didn't feel good. But Troll is like very situational. He's not very good against a lot of carries, a lot of carry matchups. So he's just like weird pick. Undying, level 15, Soul Rip damage heal is decreased. Tombstone zombie damage decreased. Undying was popular TI. He trended off a little bit, but yeah. Viper Nether Toxin mana decreased. Viper got a little over nerfed, apparently. Oh, I forgot about Nosedive. I still haven't done this. Oh, and they buffed. Oh, dude, I have to play Viper now. So they... Nosedive cast range, that's fine. Not a big deal. Nether Toxin mana decreased. Sure, that's great. But buffing the corrosive skin damage per second and then upping the magic resistance talent. All right, so let's so when you have eggs, corrosive skin applies 2 times the damage and attack speed slow to enemies that are within 500 units. And when he nosedives, he disarms in 500 AoE for 4 seconds and splatters everyone in 1200 AoE with corrosive skin. So disarms for 4 seconds and applies corrosive skin. Corrosive Skin does 32 damage at level 4, but with the talent now, it does plus 18 of that. So now it's doing 50 damage per second. So that means if somebody attacks Viper within 500 radius, they are now taking 100 damage per second for 4 seconds, which is a lot of damage. That's just by damage attacking or deal magic damage to him, right? So, and if he nosedives, oh no, it's just always like that. But nosedive also applies it, right? So, and I'm pretty sure... Okay, the win rate used to be better for corrosive skin damage per second when the other talent was something else. Now it does more poison attack magic resistance reduction, and it's no surprise that that one is better. Because your hero does a lot of magic damage, and reducing the magic resistance of your opponent by 50% more than previous is really, really good. It really increases your single target damage. But if you do plan to go an Ags build, corrosive skin damage per second is surely going to be better. You could definitely use this to farm so easily. You get Ags and now you're just doing 100 damage per second to creeps that attack you. Like, that sounds fun to me. I want to try this. Viper mid or 3 with Ags. The disarm's good. What's the cooldown on it? 20. 4-second disarm, legit good. They buff the corrosive skin magic resistance talent, which is really, really good. It ups it to 40%, so if I'm against heavy magic damage, really solid. If not, more Nether Toxin is fine. Mana cost of Nether Toxin is better, so you can certainly farm with it just fine. If you go mid, you could just max, like, you get poison attacks and Nether Toxin, skip corrosive until later, probably. Because you kind of want to get Nether Toxin damage up back to where it used to be, I would argue. And then Shard does the same thing. Max stacks, lower armor, affects buildings. The Viper Strike benefits come at 25. And it does make it better. It doesn't give you cast range anymore. So you can't get like the long cast range Viper Strike anymore. That's removed. Definitely removed. But you can Viper Strike more often. 15-second cooldown. But I would argue this poison attack damage slow is just better. The Viper Strike DPS one is just not good. This 20 talent is bad. It needs to be removed now. I just don't think it's viable at all anymore. Because you don't have Ags increasing the cast range of Viper Strike. It's just not, like, there's not a reasonable purpose to ever get this, in my opinion. It does 400 more damage with your ulti, but your ulti is, like, so situational. Like, why would you not take more slow and damage from poison attack? It's just significantly worse. Slow and damage, yeah. So it does 4 more damage and 3% more slow per stack, which is up to 5 times 3, 15% more slow at max and 20 more damage per second. Feels like it'd be a big mistake to get corrosive skin damage per second, honestly, but I don't know. If you can get tanky, it'd be worth it. I actually like a mech Viper might be good again. If you go mech Ags, I actually think that'd be good. Mech Ags, yeah. Viper mid or 3 with mech into Ags. And then go, yeah, mech first to build up and maybe get an arcane boots and then transition. Probably get a cloak. Maybe some raw HP on top of that. That could work. You need a strength blink to play this hero in fights. Bloodstone Viper? No. The spell lifesteal, I mean, the spell lifesteal is good. You could use it with, if you had Ags, it'd actually be okay. Actually would be okay with Ags. Like, Bloodstone is an optional item for, like, any high spell damage hero that as, like, a 3rd or 4th item. With Ags, it could work because you'd be reflecting a lot of damage with corrosive skin. And then activating Bloodstone would give you a lot of HP back. But the mana aspect is kind of a waste because you're not really spending that much mana on this hero. So I'd say Bloodstone's probably bad. But the HP, the HP spell lifesteal part of it's kind of good, I would say. Why with Viper Ags Slark does, this is, I already know the answer. Can you check, you're saying, why with Viper Ags does Slark do 50% of his life when he Qs, but without Ags it does 0% damage? Because the way that Ags is probably coded is that when you take damage from the corrosive skin, it ticks instantly. So the moment that it applies to you, you take the damage. Slark dispels corrosive skin every time Dark Pact procs. Dark Pact procs 10 times, I believe, over the course of Dark Pact. So for 10 times, Slark will remove the corrosive skin damage that Slark is taking. So every time corrosive skin gets applied to Slark, he'll take 32 damage. It'll instantly be removed. He'll deal damage to Viper again, therefore taking another 32 damage. That will be removed. Then he'll deal damage to Viper again. Corrosive skin will be applied again. He'll take another 32 damage. That happens 10 times basically. So when you use Dark Pact, Slark is taking HP from Dark Pact, and every corrosive skin proc will also deal damage to him. So that's why it counters himself. So if the corrosive skin damage was dealt later than instantly, like 0.25 seconds later, then it wouldn't deal 10 sources of damage basically. But for whatever reason, the Ags happens instantly on Viper. The corrosive skin damage will be dealt instantly, probably because of the way that Nosedive is coded to like slam the ground, instantly disarm and deal damage. So that it's different than the way it's base coded. So that's why it's different. All right, so that is Viper. We are almost done. And then we have Visage Ag Shard cooldown increased by 5 seconds, no big deal. Warlock Upheaval max damage per second increased up to 110. I mean, that's actually looking more appealing, I gotta say. That really is a lot of damage. Imagine going like 2 and nuke and then max Upheaval. And the damage is just there. How long does it take to ramp up though? Doesn't say anymore. Damage per second is 10. And then the golem armor is buffed a little bit. Let's check this out, because this actually could be a viable thing. Especially like Warlock faces Void or something. Genuinely. Chronosphere them, cast Upheaval. If they don't have good, if they have poor escape, like it could be really good. Upheaval with Fatal Bonds would be really good too, obviously. I know it ramps up, but I can't remember what it is. It says 10 damage per second. 10. Doubled. So it's going up by 10 damage per second, basically. So it stops the second that it stops. And it definitely takes a long time to let ramp up. Let's see what the total damage is. That's a good question to know. So if he takes the entire Upheaval duration at level 4, he's taking a good amount of damage, certainly. 800 damage. But it takes so long to get the full channel. Like, I mean, the cast range is really high. It goes up as you level it up, right? So, like, it's not unreasonable to assume that, like, I'm going to be able to, like, cast this from far away and, like, now they're mega slowed. I know the slow stays on them, the damage is not, so like, I don't know. This has potential value for sure. If you did max it out early, you could use it. It's just the cooldown's really long at 35 seconds, so it's great in a team fight, especially if you cast it with like Chaotic Offering. Usually I don't end up leveling this up too fast. The other problem is that like the max damage is kind of not that incredible if you don't channel the full duration, whereas like even though the max damage is less at earlier levels, but like the damage might be the same, right? Like if I cast this and they run out of it in 5 seconds, it's the same whether there was 1 or 2 points. You could argue that the slow is obviously going to be more incredible way faster here because it ramps up quicker, 25% per second, and the max slow is 100, right? So within 4 seconds, it's at 100%, and it lasts for 3 seconds as well. So I don't know. There's probably some space for maxing Upheaval in the game. Because Warlock has poor control, you know, I'd probably do something like this: Shadow Word Upheaval, and then max out Fatal Bonds afterwards. And this is how I would start a fight. And then for that 1 second, they're stunned, and now they're basically just stuck in here with the Golem. You know, and the Golem is auto attacking, and they're taking a lot of damage. This would be the ideal way to do it, and then ideally you don't get stunned. I could see that. I'll put that on the list. Warlock Upheaval, Evil max 0 to 4, and then from there play like normal. Shard is still a bit weak, but mid Warlock, nah, I don't. It's not going to be good enough for that. Like if you're mid, you're like, you can play mid Warlock, but it's like you have to get Fatal Bonds. You have to level Fatal Bonds early is the problem, because otherwise you're not going to be able to push the mid wave. And then you're going to get out farmed by your opponents. You have to Fatal Bond and Shadow Word. Maybe you could level it later or something, especially if you go like some Midas build or some shit, but that's like not viable these days compared to like a mid that can properly gank. You took stats over Upheaval? I don't think that's good, personally. I think Upheaval it's a genuinely good skill. You're undervaluing it, but it depends what items you had as mid. If you can't stand there and channel, then I get it, but I imagine there's probably times where Upheaval would have been good. But if you're maxing Shadow Word and Fatal Bonds first, and then you're getting into like a mid-game situation where they have a lot of dive heroes and you need to dodge, then I could see why it wouldn't feel good. Will I try all in one stream? No promises, but I'll definitely pick all these things I want to try today rather than playing Cavern Crawl. Wind Ranger base damage increased. She was on pick to TI, by the way. Base mana regen increased. Wind Run Talent. I gotta look at Wind Ranger. Let's see if there's any value here. Her base damage is increased by 2, so she does 50 damage at level 1. Her base stats are kind of bad, but her stat gain is good. Her armor is bad. Her movement speed is bad. They buffed her base mana regen, which is now 1.2, which is fine. Oops, wrong hero. Base mana regen 1.2. Power shot talent got buffed. That left. No, it's gone. It's at 15 now. The power shot damage reduction talent, that one's probably pretty good, but it's at 15, so like I don't know if you really farm that fast with it, but I mean it makes power shot good. 5% damage reduction instead of 20 is a lot. It means you're doing like basically full damage to full creep waves and heroes. Like it is a better skill. But wind run radius, wind run currently slows enemies in a 325. You can buff that with 225. And where is... Yes, the talent got buffed. So if you use wind run near your opponents, 325, they are slowed. That can be buffed up to 550, which is basically the whole fight, which is pretty sick. So if you go right talent first to wind run radius and wind run cooldown, you have a 6 out of 9 uptime wind run. You're slowing your opponents in a radius of 550 for 30%, which is pretty significant. That's nice. And it's significantly going to increase your chances of shackling too. If you're basically running around fights, wind running and shackling, that part's good. I could see like a mech build on Wind Ranger being good. Be like survivable, cast wind run all the time, and slow your opponents in fights as you land shackles and slowly kill them. The problem is that focus fire is very much a solo kill ability, and it kind of forces your hero to be good with Maelstroms, you know, javelin type stuff. Maybe you could do like a diffusal blade build, but because it does give you 10 int, it's not that bad. But like it's not bad. It's genuinely not that bad. But once they run out of mana, it's kind of weak. But I don't know, maybe like it's the same cost though, you know. And you'll farm faster with Maelstrom, but it's like you don't really need Maelstrom to farm is the problem, because Maelstrom does make you farm well, and it does give you better AoE damage when you use focus fire on a guy, but you don't focus fire that often. And the Maelstrom leaves you kind of vulnerable because all it does is do damage, right? Whereas Diffusal Blade actually gives you armor, attack speed, and that attack speed is useful in focus fire, by the way. Like I wouldn't be surprised if you do more single target damage with Diffusal Blade. I'm gonna write it down. Diffusal Wind Ranger mid. I want to play core versus support probably, because support is like kind of boring. It's like obvious how you play it. You just, you know, land shackles, buy shard, blah blah blah. But if you go mid, get Diffusal Blade, you have way more utility. You've got decent attack speed. I wouldn't be surprised if a treads would be good, because again, the attack speed doesn't cap out with focus fire, so more attack speed is not bad. And having like treads diffusal means you actually attack pretty quick. And it would give you more HP, which would help you against magic nukes, and you're protected against physical from Wind Run and from a little bit extra armor from Diffusal, for example. So I feel like a Diffusal build could work on Wind Ranger. And then you also have the utility of slowing them with the active, which could set up shackle shots, for example. And you could also Diffusal and run away from opponents instead of having to shackle them. So I don't know. I think Diffusal could work. MKB? Yeah, MKB is really good too, but it's just really expensive is the problem. It's a 5,000 gold item. By the time you buy MKB, sure, your single target kill is really good, but now you have a BKB problem, which is one of Wind Ranger's issues, is that in the mid game, she gets absolutely destroyed by nukes and disables, because you basically end silences. You need to use Wind Run to live. If you don't use Wind Run, you die easily to physical damage. So if you're prevented from using Wind Run, you die. If you cannot run away, you die. So you need BKB. So people buy Maelstrom, they get solo kills, they buy BKB, then they can play their game from there. But if you don't get the Maelstrom to solo kill, get a kill or two, and then buy BKB, you just suck in the mid game fights. So to solve this, you either need to make her not reliant on BKB, you need to substitute a solo kill item that is either cheaper or easier to get. Diffusal could work. I mean, hypothetically, like a Witchblade is kind of cool too, but Witchblade kind of works as well. Solo kill's way worse, obviously, because focus fire with Diffusal Blade straight up is going to be better. But it would give you way more, like, it gives you armor, which is really good. Gives you attack speed and int, which is great. Gives you projectile speed, which is great, and gives you a slow when you gank your opponents and a little bit of damage. So if you want to run around the map and get like power shot, shackle shot, witchblade kills, that's solid. I could see like a Tread's witchblade being kind of okay on Wind Ranger. Rely on power shot and witchblade for damage. It's fine. And then the armor is going to make you not die quite as quick. And then you could buy like BKB afterwards. I kind of like something like that more than a Maelstrom Rush, honestly. Again, Maelstrom, more damage. But if you run around and fight with your team and you stay alive outside of using Wind Run, I think that would add more value to the hero, personally. So I would actually like to try Wind Ranger mid. Diffusal or Witchblade. Maybe Treads. But BOTs is probably a lot better, honestly. Because you're going to be able to split push the map more. You'll be way faster. Like, way faster when you use Wind Run. The downside is if you don't have Treads, then your raw HP is going to be shitty. And you'll die easy. Probably just Falcon Blade. So Falcon Blade. Falcon Blade will give you the HP you need. Gives you mana regen, gives you damage. All things you use. So Falcon Blade into Witchblade or Diffusal. And then you can go BOTs or Treads. That's probably what I would do. Diffusal plus Wind Run equals no movement speed. Yeah, they're not going to be... like, they'll be really slow for sure. And focus firing a guy and burning his mana is obviously really, really good. Yeah, I think this could work for sure. It definitely could work. And then after you do this, you could buy BKB as normal, but your early mid game is just going to be better because you're going to have either Diffusal or Witchblade. And you just farm a lot with Power Shot probably. And then later you can get the Wind Run talent probably. The Shackle Shot cooldown one's cool, but Wind Run Radius is probably just better because you can start like slowing your opponents constantly. Wind Run cooldown is probably the best one. Let's look at the win rates. Power Shot damage reduction is a higher win rate, but I just feel like the Wind Run cooldown one's too good. You could have like 6 out of 9 seconds of Wind Run active. The mana cost is not high, so it's just strong. And if the radius is high, you're slowing them by a lot. So you're just slowing your opponents by 30% like every fight for 75% of the time, which means you land shackles and powers easier. And then what are the other talents? Shackle Shot duration at 20, focus fire damage reduction. That one's higher. It is also grabbed. Probably because that's cores. This kind of indicates that a Wind Ranger at level 20 that's a core or has items is going to win. So maybe not indicative, but... And then focus fire kills advanced cooldown by 20 seconds. That one has a higher win rate for those late game situations because then you can get a focus fire kill, move on. And yeah, you'd go like Diffusal Blade or Witchblade, and you'd go into probably an MKB after you get BKB. That way your single target damage gets upped again. Or if you want, you could even just throw in a Javelin. You could do Diffusal Blade or Witchblade and then throw in a Javelin if you want a little bit more damage. You don't have to like go all in on it. Because on average, it's going to be like 20 magic damage. So today was a good day for like theory crafting stuff to try, that's for sure. Oh, it's 21. 21 magic damage on average with a Javelin with focus fire. Which is good. Okay, and then last tier, Wraith King. Wraith Fire Blast projectile speed increased from 1000 to 1200, so easier to land your stun without them dodging. And I read this one already. Vampiric Spirit Skeletons now gain 25 additional movement and attack speed when targeting an enemy affected by Wraith Fire Blast. That seems good to me. Movement and attack speed is huge. Like this is my theory. Imagine a Wraith King who ganks with a drum. Orchid is decent on Wind Ranger, yes, because it will amplify the damage you deal, but the problem is that it doesn't proc any extra damage, so it doesn't... It's fine with Focus Fire, but it's not, like, really good, is the problem. I'm gonna need, like, level 10. Okay, it's the same at all levels, which means I can just do this. I just want to get some creep kills. Okay, so let's imagine I don't have all of these things. Let's imagine I instead have phase boots and a drum. This is like a classic carry build, actually. And then we have a hero. Some like, I don't know, Nature's Prophet or something. We'll level this guy up a bunch. 10, we'll give him like treads or something. And I don't know what a Prophet's build. I don't remember. Anyways. What's the duration on this? $25 when targeting an enemy. Okay, so if I just Wraithfire Blast him, it will stay on him basically permanently. And then what's the... This looks like normal movement speed. Okay, and then now they're at 395 or 375, but I also have drum. It's like he literally can't get away because their movement speed is really high. These ones timed out actually, but do you see what I mean? If you get a drum, it increases their movement speed by 20. Like this against a support or something. Like if I go into a team fight in a mid game with Wraith King and I have like a dust, and it's like a Crystal Maiden or something. And we level her up a bit or something. Like if I have skeletons, even if she has like Max Nova and like Tranquil Boots or something and like a Windlace. Alright, I need to go get creep kills again. Oops. Okay. But if this is all my items and I just have like 8 skeletons or something and I like stun and dust her, like she's not getting away. If she has a Force Staff or a Glimmer, like I don't know, man, this seems kind of good. Like you could definitely turn this into a gank. The only you have to have vision of them for sure, but like I don't know, maybe you could, if they have AoE at all, it's not very good, right? But because if they have AoE, they kill your skeletons. They have good magic resistance, but their physical is bad. So if they have like a cleave or if they're a Tide Hunter or something, they die easily. But I could see that being fun as a core. Helm of the Overlord plus Skellies plus drums. I think you're onto something. Offlane Wraith King. Summons based. Helm of the Overlord into drum. Boots, helm, drum. I could kind of, it's a little bit high cost for timing because like it works better the faster you get it, you know? If I go phase drum right away as Wraith King and I get skeletons, that seems really good. Like I can definitely get kills with that. And it's so fast as a core. If I'm winning my lane and I get it really quick, I can get kills with it, which feels like it justifies the cost of the drum to me. Drums in a pipe. I mean, you don't need pipe, guys. You don't need to buy an item just to keep your like expendable skeletons alive. That's unreasonable, I think. But Skelly duration and cooldown. There's cooldown talents, right? So, and then skeleton attack damage at 15. Min skeleton spawns. The drum is actually kind of a cool idea. The only downside is you're going to run out of charges eventually, and you don't really want to buy tranquils on this guy. But you could rebuy the recipe hypothetically. And either way, still having drum with the skeletons is probably fine. So AC would be really good though. You could definitely do like drums, buy a couple of regular items, get an AC later. I feel like AC on Wraith, I mean that's a fact. AC on Wraith King straight up just way better than it was before. Because now your skeletons actually do a lot of damage. The only downside to this is that it takes time for the skeletons to spawn. So if you blink, spawn skeletons, and then throw the stun, it's only going to affect some of the skellies. But AC is amazing, right? If they get 25 attack speed and movement speed, and there's an AC on top of that. They do even more damage. Paradrum Shard enchant for little friends. That's true. For little friends. Drum Shard enchant. Yeah, I mean, she could little friends it. That would work too. Probably. That's actually not a bad idea. I totally forget about that skill.
Trample you.
100 bonus attack speed. Yeah, this seems quite good with, against Wraith King, actually. That's a really good point. I've never thought about it with skeletons. But the skeletons keep getting buffed. Like, they're actually not bad. Do you not stun first before summoning for the attack speed? You have to... The skeletons have to be alive for you to direct them to attack somebody is how it works. So you'd have to summon them all and then throw the stun. But yeah, phase plus drum with this hero with like max skeletons actually could work. Legit could work. As long as they don't have like a super easy AoE or AoE stun or escape, I think it could work really well. More Wraith Fire Blast would make it simpler because you'd have more disable, but... Vamp Spirit Lifesteal, more win rate. 8% more for your hero, and 8% more for your skellies too. Versus lower cooldown, more duration on summon skeletons. This increases farm rate, but the lifesteal might keep them alive more often, number one. And number two, will keep your carry alive more in late game fights. So that makes sense why it has a higher win rate. While all the skeleton talents legitimately have a much higher win rate. Very interesting. Okay. That is the end of the patch. That only took us 3 hours to go over, even though it was like a patch that probably only should have taken like 25 minutes, but that's fine. Now to try some dumb shit. So I wrote down... So there's all the Bloodstone heroes that we could potentially try, but that doesn't sound like the most interesting thing to me. Dota stuff to try. I must save these. November, December 2022. Bloodstone on heroes, probably not worth forcing, but I'll keep it in mind as a potential item. Maybe Sand King was the most promising one. Sand King Bloodstone, especially if you get a kill with Caustic, would be really good because it's going to do a lot of magic damage to everybody around, and that would probably full heal you. So Sand King Bloodstone maybe as an option, but it's gonna be so... V-Guard into Bloodstone. Vanguard into Blink into Bloodstone probably is what it has to be.